my heart stored. I bought myself a pictomicron and some crystal core. I made a fancy comic, and now I am all set to be the greatest web cartoonist on the fucking internet. I'll have a forum and a blog and links from DVD. I'll get reviewed by Webstar, Green and William G. The world to be a royster, I think it's a safe bet when you're the greatest web cartoonist on the fucking internet. When you're the greatest web cartoonist on the fucking
Hello everybody, and hello, welcome to another edition of Planet Earth Live, the Zardoz Connection, aka See You Next Wednesday, or Advanced Cartooning Class with me, your host, Chuck Whelan. And my regular co-host today is Amber Greenlee. Hopefully Chris Porro will be joining us later. I don't know what happened to him, he was around earlier. And today our very special guest, good friend, web cartoonist, illustrator, all-around great guy and amazing artist, Dirk Tiede. Hello, Dirk. Welcome back. You've been on this show. Have you been on this version of the show? You came on my podcast.
Version of a show.
Yes, you came on my live stream, my podcast I did years ago, The Masters of Webcomics, and we had a very good talk back then. But that was. I don't know, that was a while ago, wasn't it?
Many moons past.
Yeah, and, now this version of the show has been running for about a year, or just over a year, I would say. I was doing it sort of daily for a Kickstarter, and now we're doing it every week, Wednesday mornings, 9 a.m. We're pretty good, we're pretty regular, we're doing quite well. Amber's here, I have, a couple of co-hosts with me, Amber and Dale. Unfortunately, bad news, folks. Dale's got a cat emergency. So anyway, I don't think he's going to be joining us today. I think he's at the vet. I haven't.
He's at the emergency vet. He said. It's an elderly cat that belongs to his parents, and so it's been in his life for a long time. And you got to be there for your furry friend.
Yes.
And above all, Dale's really a cat lover. He's a comics lover and a cartoonist, but. Yes. Yeah. So we're thinking of him and sending our best wishes there and love to Dale. And so that's so we'll get on with the show anyway. And here is Dirk. Right, hi Dirk. What's going on?
Hello.
I'm gonna make us all sort of equally sized so that I'm not looming over everybody. How's that?
But you're such a good loomer.
Actually, no, I'll tell you what, I'm going to put Dirk loom over it. He's the guest. That's what we normally do. We put the guest there. There we go. There we go. Yeah, now we're featuring you, and that looks different. And they say, they've actually got a guest on this week.
Also good loomage. So we're talking about stuff. We got a guest here. One of the reasons why we asked you here today is because you have a Paradigm Shift movie
That's
you're working
right.
on.
Yes,
that's right.
And you can share your
making
screen.
My dreams come true here.
Yes, you can share your screen and show us animations of.
All right, wait. We're not going to go right in with the clip. We'll build up to the clip because I think it's very good. So let's talk about Paradigm Shift. All right, okay. Now I'm going to make myself big again now because I've got Paradigm Shift. All right, Paradigm Shift, book 1. All right, so when I first met Dirk, I'll tell the story. He was working away on book 1. I don't know how far. Oh, look, I forgot you've got all these colour pages in here now. Like, those are new. You didn't have those back in the day.
Yes. Those were for the special edition.
Yes. So that was lovely. This is the special edition funded on Kickstarter. But when I met Dirk, he had just... How many pages do you think you had done back then?
Oh, gosh. I was still in the very first book of the first volume. So I maybe had about 40 pages done, maybe at that point.
Well,
so it was still pretty early days. It was
yes, and this was in the year 2020 something.
That was pre-Modern Tales because that would have been Comics to You.
So
yes.
wait. Since
2020, around 2020.
Since we're at this era, we have to talk about something that probably hasn't been talked about in a long time. With expanded canvases, remember those?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Expanded canvases and stuff. I remember that Paradigm Shift, you used to set up the pages so that the long scroll that Joey had set up on Modern Tales would have the pages stitched together into one long scroll, but they also looked good and read separately for when you had the comic.
Right, because I planned them to be pages in a book, and then I stitched them together after the fact for web reading, in that format.
What? Like you had it in both formats, and it was amazing because you would have these long scrolls, and it's just
that's cool. Right. That was the second book. Yeah.
One of the things you were most sort of famous for, I think, among the web cartoonists were your backgrounds. Like, you're doing in a manga or manga style, very sort of traditional manga. I mean, I'm not really a judge of manga, so I don't really, I can't really say, but it looks like, good, straightforward manga. But yes, you seem to specialize in like, your characters are like quite clean and simple, but then you'd go into a super detailed backgrounds, a bit like, like Hergé and Tintin, like he also would do a really fine sort of backgrounds, and I don't know how well this shows up on the camera, like a lot of these stuff.
Hold it still.
Some super detailed Chicago scenes. This was super light. This one's screen back. I've got the art book. Yeah, we'll look at some of those, and actually we can bring some up on the screen as well, or like a Chicago street scene.
Yeah, like that was the first page that appeared on Modern Tales.
That was the first page on Modern Tales. Oh, okay, that's good. Okay, great.
That was the beginning of the second book.
Yeah,
which is in the first book now, but
yeah. So that much you had done, and I remember meeting you around 2002, that first sort of convention we all went down to, and you were really, you seemed to know. I thought you were like an expert in all these things. You seemed to know a bit more about it than I did, and we went down, and you said, "Oh, I'm staying at the Holiday Inn," and I stayed at the Holiday Inn. I don't know if I even crashed in the same room as you.
Yeah, we did. We crashed together.
Yeah, we crashed together in the same room. That was because you invited me. Thank you, and you let me share your table. So you were really generous, and that was really kind. And that was sort of my first real experience of doing a Comic-Con.
I mean, I can't believe that my meeting all of you was at San Diego that early. On. Like, it's kind of amazing to realize, like, holy crap! I got my start like the first time I went to San Diego.
Yeah. It was that was just it was a crazy time because, I mean, Modern Tales predated Google, didn't it?
No, Google was still early years. Like Google was late 90s, because I remember when Google.
I know Keen predated Google.
Yes.
And so I had gone from Keen Space to Modern Tales.
Yeah, I think Google came out around the time when I launched my website in 99, because it was just getting started, and we were all using other search engines like InfoSeek and Yahoo and all that stuff, and I remember somebody at my job pointed me at Google and was like, "Oh my god, this thing is amazing." And that was like early 99, and I remember that summer going to my first comic convention, and I brought like I printed up like 10 copies of like the first 20 pages of PS, and like walked around the Chicago Wizard World Comic-Con, and ended up meeting some other people who were doing webcomics.
Mm-hmm.
And Amber was there, yes, and we were all there, yes. It was great.
Well, this was
I wasn't at Chicago.
I was
at
not Chicago, no, but yeah, in the San Diego.
So 3 years before.
Yeah.
And then the people who I met there we ended up doing a bunch of webcomics together, and then Barrett Lombardo was one of them, and he was one of the people for Modern Tales once we all met up. I don't know if you remember Comics to You, but I remember Pupil.
I do. Yes, I do remember Comics to You. That's where I first discovered you, was on Comics to You. I was looking around and like, here's a guy who really knows what he's doing, and you'd figured out like how did he figure out that sending out an email? How did he get that organized and get it all together? You really seem to like have your shit together.
Wow, I certainly didn't feel organized at the time. I'm sort of like, oh my god, you guys can draw so fast. I'm like, I'm drawing my stuff and I'll make a website and put it on it.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's hard to do both things at once, isn't it? You're either quite good at sort of getting it put out there, or you just sort of do a lot of it.
Yeah, well, it's the same with this movie, man. I'm just like, okay, I know how to do this. I'm gonna do it. And
so, Dirk, we have in the comments here, we have I'm a huge fan of your work on Paradigm Shift from Nathan French.
Hey, Nathan. We've been conversing a little bit on the socials last couple of weeks since I dropped the trailer. So thanks for coming, man.
Yeah, so Paradigm Shift is a werewolf detective story, I guess, is the premise.
Yes, that's my tagline.
As it should be. It should be. There should be more werewolf detective stories in the world, and there it's disparaging that there's not.
And it's really ambitious. And Dirk set out on it with a very ambitious sort of goal. Yeah. I remember talking to him at that convention, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to do this. I've got all this stuff planned." I'm like, "Whoa!"
Yeah. Really... And now I tell all my students who I meet, like, don't start with your epic. Do like a 20-page short. That's a better place to start. But I am still at it. Although now I seem to be pivoting to animation because, oh my god, animation is so much fun. Holy crap!
Yes.
So much fun.
Okay. Well, we're gonna get to the animation because I'm going to tell more about. I'm going to tell more about the old days and the book. Okay. So then a couple of years ago, Dirk got a Kickstarter. He got this book done, and book 2. So here you are. You've got like the 2 volumes. This is what you've done. Look at all those pages of manga. So that's a big, nice, fat manga for you. Like people they like a big old manga to read on the train.
Yeah. Only took 20 years.
And and also you put it out with a beautiful art book here as well. So that was a great Kickstarter. I don't know if people can still get all these.
Oh yeah, they're
on
still
your
available.
website.
I have so many copies of that stuff. But
yes.
Oh, good. Now I know what to buy.
Yes. So all they are Paradigm Shift, and this is a very instructional. If you want to write your own manga, if you're an artist setting out, you could do better. Yeah, I mean, you couldn't do better than having a good look at this, and just see what can be done. Really, I mean, you got some quite good sort of tips on figure drawing in there.
Well, one thing
and laying out the script in the pages, actually very concise.
I know that you made your
well thought out.
I know you made your living as a graphic designer for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And your website used to have this pencil look to it,
yes.
which I thought was like badass, where you'd like roll over the buttons and stuff, and then they would be finished with like inks and colors.
Yes.
So right where you were on the website, but everything was quote unquote in this unfinished look. But you had your portfolio on there. You had a bunch of websites you designed, and I was always like, man, I wish I would have thought of that.
Well, I'm glad somebody noticed, because I mean, that was sort of like the redesign I did for the portfolio. Well, actually, no, that was the first version of the portfolio site back in like 2004 or something like that. Back when like rollovers were a thing that were kind of hard to code.
Yeah. Now.
Oh yeah.
Now you have to get this.
I do not miss web coding at all. Do not. Do not.
Yeah.
Miss it.
On that note.
Yes.
Keenspot's website is still web coded. It's like still hard coded. It's still the same code that they were using from the late 90s, early 2000s.
It's probably
right?
sensible. It's probably sensible.
Well, I've had to dust off my HTML and CSS skills and stuff, and I'm like, I do not remember how to do this.
Do you use WordPress? I went over to WordPress and was glad I did.
On my own website, I use WordPress, yes, and then I have a comic easel installed in that for my archives,
right?
For all my comics, and
so,
that's pretty much been handling that.
Version of the site is modern WordPress, although after the Kickstarter, I decided I do not want to code websites anymore. So I actually found a coder to help me customize WordPress for that particular version of the site. So the way the comic archive works, it's more like a gallery kind of setup where every scene is like a gallery of pages that scroll. And then when you get to the end of the scene, then it switches over to the next one. And so I paid a guy to help me build that, because I knew how I wanted it to look. I knew how I wanted it to feel. None of the plugins. And I just was looking at all that and going like, I customized the hell out of the version of the site that I built in like 2010. And, it took me like 3 months to code all myself. And I'm a hack when it comes to programming. So like I could make it work but it's not something I enjoy doing. So this time I was like, you know what? I've got the budget. I'm going to just hire somebody.
Yeah. How much did your guy charge for that? Because I've been waiting on my website for forever. And with WordPress's new update to version 5 and 6 with their block version.
Oh, the Gutenberg blocks, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
with the blocks versus their old way, Comic Easel doesn't work immediately with the blocks. You have to set it up. Sorry about my daughter.
It's all right.
Yes. All right. Well, should we get to animation now, Dirk? I know you're excited to talk about the animation. Can we see? How can we see the clip?
Probably the easiest way would be to go to paradigmshiftmanga.com and click on the YouTube link. It's right there.
Can you play it if you share your screen? Does that work?
Yeah, I can play it. Give me a second.
I don't know. I'm not sure how well it was. Usually best if we want to do a video to upload it. So
I have it. I could send you a Dropbox.
Ooh. Yes. No. I think there's a. If you did it off your screen, Dirk, you should be able to share your screen there. That might work best.
Yeah, you can share your screen.
Pull it up.
Is my audio still out? Oh shit!
Oh no, you're back. Hello.
I hear somebody.
Sweet. Awesome.
So Dirk, this is
Dirk.
Chris, other regular co-host, Chris Porro. Chris is a good friend of mine from San Francisco. We worked together at an advertising agency some years ago and been very good friends for a long time as well. Chris is a musician, so you could talk to him about that a bit because
awesome.
Dirk also strums a little bit, don't you, Dirk?
Yeah, I play fiddle, I play guitar.
Oh, cool.
I play some bass.
Okay, do you want me to just play it?
Bass
or I've got it set up here. I could share screen.
This looks good on my end.
Okay, I was trying.
You want?
I was trying to like.
It's ready to go. Then it's ready to go.
Yeah.
Looks good over here.
Yeah,
Can you guys hear it?
Yep.
Yeah, that's working. That's great.
I think I saw a trachea.
Yep, you did.
Very good.
Yeah,
very
cool.
good. That came through pretty well, actually. Yes, I mean, you can see it's a lot smoother if you go watch it directly from the source.
Yeah. It was a little
jerky,
low frame rate.
But I think it came through pretty good. That was great. That was our first proper clip on the show. Well done.
Yay!
Oh my God.
That's amazing, Dirk. It's so good. You brought your comic to life. I mean, here's the cover of the comic. I mean, the art book. I mean, you literally.
Yeah.
You know,
you
got you got your style,
really
you got your Chicago background, those scenes. It looked just like her. Again in the art book here, you sort of. I remember looking at drawings that you had done again back in that 2002 at Comic-Con, and you had your sketchbook was filled with all the sort of transformation drawings.
Yeah,
that. Yes,
design was like it took me years to sort of like wrap my head around how to make that work.
We can finally get to Dale's question. What software are you using for animation?
I'm using Blender. Yes. This is all being rendered out in Blender. I had to set up a 3D character rig of all the characters, but the first one, of course, was Kate, the main character, who the rig actually has to transform into a werewolf.
You said in one of your posts that it was actually 3 rigs that you used to get the transformation.
Yes, it's for that test one. That was done with 3 rigs. So there's a human that goes sort of like to halfway, and then there was sort of like halfway to 3/4, and then there was 3/4 to all the way full on beast. I've now got it down to 2.
Nice. Nice.
So the current version of the rig, I only need 2 for that, but it's in
The Incredibles when Mrs. Incredible, when Elastigirl is around the round ball and she shrinks down into her regular form. They use something like 5 or 6 different models stitched together for that.
I believe it because like once you start like changing the shape of the basic model, and if it goes too far outside the shape of the armature, which is like the bone setup, like it just weird stuff starts to happen, and it gets really deformed. So I basically was able to make it work that I could change the shape of the character and keep it the same size as the model, and then animate the size of the bones over the course of the animation, so I can make her stretch and get bigger and whatnot. But there's certain things that just they start breaking after you start playing with it too much, and then you need another rig. So and you know, my next after I finish this, then I will be probably doing a new version of that rig based on everything I've learned from doing the movie, because it's kind of primitive.
So we have another question. Do you know when will Paradigm Shift short film be released? I'm just curious and excited.
Oh yes, absolutely. I'm actually within weeks of finishing the cleanup of the shots, and so I'm shooting for a release this summer. I do have to finish the audio. That's the next step after I finish the shots.
How are you doing the audio? Are you using AI or are you using actors?
No, actually, so there is no dialogue in the film. It's entirely silent in terms of there's no, because I started it I was originally just going to be a music video, but I kept having so much fun with it that it just kept getting more and more. And then last fall, I was at MICE here in Boston, the Massachusetts Independent Comics Expo, and talking with my friend Alexander Danner, who runs a podcast called Greater
miss
Boston.
Alexander.
Yeah, he does podcasts now. And in fact, he's also a writer for the ElfQuest audio drama that is ongoing right now.
Oh, yeah, with Wendy Peeney and Richard
exactly.
Peeney, yes.
So Alexander has now like gotten all into audio, and he's been working on a certificate in audio engineering. And it turned out last fall he was taking a class in audio for film. And I was like, well, you know, I would love to have some sound effects for my movie that I'm working on here. He was like, well, I'm taking this class and I need something for a final project. So
it's a peanut butter chocolate situation.
I sent him a rough cut of the animation at the end of October. And about a month later, he sent it back to me. With
Chuck,
all these sound effects.
Oh yeah, okay.
Chuck, go back to that.
Yeah,
go
okay.
back to those pages.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if you flip through them very slowly, you can kind of see how these ones were stitched together. I remember these ones.
Oh no, these are for later. But
these are for later.
So I didn't want to do too much spoiling. They're a little later on. Yeah.
Yeah, this is
towards the end. I was showing some of the,
until just a few years ago. These were from 2017.
Oh, I thought those were some of the stitchy ones. I'm sorry.
No, the one I'm thinking of in my mind is the big warehouse fight in the middle of Volume 1.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an incredibly high quality manga. I mean, have you ever spoken to like Japanese publisher or something?
No, I have zero connections.
Yes, you do.
I did get to meet Kenichi Sonoda once, who's one of my manga heroes, and I did give him copies of my book, and he flipped through them. This was at Anime Central, the big anime show in Chicago, and he flipped through them and said through his translator, "This is very good."
Oh,
and
very
so
cool.
I took that as a compliment.
I think you should try find a publisher in Japan.
Shane and Garrity works at Viz.
Oh, I know.
So just talk to her, and she has all the connections.
At all, they don't touch American stuff. So,
believe
me, I went and visited Viz once when I was visiting San Francisco, and that was a good time.
But you've got a complete finished product here. You can do more of it.
Yeah, I over the pandemic, I wrote like the third volume, and it's like 500 pages long, and I'm like, oh god, I don't know if I want to draw that many pages.
You would know. Somebody said, "Oh, I'll give you the money to do it,"
and then I started playing with the animation. It's been like no looking back since.
Dirk, how long does it take for a minute of animation? Because I always imagine animation was super labor intensive, but maybe less so today.
It is and it isn't. So I'm doing Blender, it's doing all the drawing for me. So I have to focus on how it looks. Also, I'm using After Effects. I'm using Adobe After Effects to do all the compositing after the fact. So I like render out multiple layers. So I have like one layer for the background, and then another layer for the character colors, and then another layer for the character lines, and all that. I can actually animate pretty quickly. It's all the final touch-up rendering and like doing the final compositing and passes that's taking all the time right now. Like I started like also setting up and creating all your assets. That takes a long time too. It took me like almost 2 months to get Kate as a working rig about this time last year.
Which is just because I don't do a lot of animation, but I think by rig you're talking about like a model.
Yeah, it's
like a skeleton.
A posable, movable, animatable 3D model. That's a rig.
Right. And then what do you do? Do you have like a point in like the hand and you move it over here and then it
does
it's like
the
you've
tween?
got
like this bone structure underneath. I could share my screen and kind of show what I've actually got a project open right now that I could show. Oh my god, this is totally this is a spoiler for the internet, but not a spoiler for the movie. I'm making a really goofy thing, but here, let me share my screen and laugh really hard, and I hope you laugh really hard because this is really fun. Here.
Just to let you know, we got another message from Richard Paquette. Just wanted to say I'm a big fan of Paradigm Shift, which I had found out about on Kickstarter.
Thank you so much, Richard. All right. All right. Nope. Wrong thing.
Okay.
All right. Blender.
There we go.
Oh, there's a shot. All right. So this is something I'm making for fun. I am making a parody of the Sailor Moon magical girl transformation. Because why not? Oh, I'm going to turn off the sound here. But so you can probably see the like, so I've got like the reference video over here set up, and then this is sort of my camera window, and then here's like the part where I can move and pose everything. And if you see, there's like all these little controls here, and each of these control a different part of the character. So here, let me back up earlier here.
And those are keyframes, those dots?
Yeah, this is the timeline. So this is like all the keyframes for stuff. So this is where I've got the character set up here, and she's just in a basic pose, and then I've got the transformation set up here. And it's already pre-keyframed, so because I knew I was going to have her transform in this sequence. So I have all that stuff. It's all copied from another file. And then I can just copy all these keyframes and move them to the part where I want. And so I don't have to like redo the transformation. But so when I talk about a rig, it's this setup where I can grab things and move it around. So if I want to move her foot, I got to turn the IK on here. This thing called inverse kinematics, which allows you to like move a bone and then it'll just follow. So you can see. So
the rest of the leg follows.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then there's another one set up for the hands and arms.
It's very interesting. I was just watching that the documentary about Light and Magic, about the history of ILM, and the sort of switch from the sort of creature, like where they're making things physically, to going over to digital and doing all that, and that was a very difficult transition. And a few of them made it, but not many. And it was sort of like, it sort of went from this sort of wonderful world full of all these amazing creations,
like physical models and stuff,
to like a lot of just computers. But you couldn't really deny that it was sort of better. But then at some point they seemed to transition, and now they were sort of showing at the end like how they filmed The Mandalorian. And I didn't realize this, but they have like a 360-degree screen, like circles around their set. Yes. And so the artist, so it's sort of done the other way. So the artists build the whole model of the world in a very, sort of free way that they can create this. And then the actors come in, and then the digital things can be put in. And, so, I mean, you looks like you're moving around this quite comfortably now.
Yeah, well, I've been doing this for a year, but I've also was familiar with 3D software before I started playing with Blender. my senior thesis in 1997 was a 1.5-minute long 3D animated short. Of course, it involved spaceships and not characters, because the software to do any character stuff was basically like unreachable for me, as was the hardware at the time.
Was it
but
Maya?
I did like a Star Trek thing, and Maya didn't even exist then. It was like Lightwave, and it was still
Lightwave
at that point.
Yeah, Lightwave.
Alias Wavefront was what became Maya. 3ds Studio Max wasn't even out yet at that point. So I was using stuff like Infinity, which does, that's long since gone away. And like, you couldn't even do point-based modeling. You had to build everything out of primitives or stitch things together. It was hard. And then for the longest time, I've used SketchUp, which I've used to build sets for my comics. So like a lot of the stuff in Volume 2, like the whole sequence at the end where they're like, Kate is fighting this dude and she's like all transformed and fighting this dude out around this cabin. Well, I built that cabin, both the inside and the outside, and I have like, and there's like a truck that, like, he hits her with a truck. Like, I've got that truck as a 3D model. I just download it. I didn't make it.
Yeah. Oh yes.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. I like SketchUp.
So so you're not drawing right now, you're just animating.
Yeah, basically. This is like, I've basically been hardcore 3D stuff and video and compositing for the last year, basically. But I've got a 7-minute movie to show for it now. So, I could switch back to I can share more screen, or we can switch back to video if you want.
It's up to you.
Dirk, are you gonna do like the festival stuff, like submit through what is it, Film Freeway, like to all the animation festivals? And
I would like to. I don't know anything about it right now, so I'm gonna have to do some serious research.
Just look at Film Freeway. From what I gather, it's basically the easy hub where everyone submits to festivals, and it's got all these filters on it, so you can find a bunch of, like, I just submitted a bunch of to a bunch of free festivals that did music videos. Now I don't know if I'll get accepted at any of them, but
yeah, you've got a very solid piece of IP there, and that video really shows it off very well.
Thank you. Yeah, and I would very much like to take this to the next step, and I've got already ideas. Like, I've been mentoring at a local art school this semester.
Mentoring interns? What are you, a school?
Well, I actually taught school for a couple of years before the pandemic. Although it wasn't art, I was doing like internet literacy and like social media stuff for like junior high school students.
Oh yes, and you painted that mural. Was that?
Yeah, and I painted a mural last. I did a bunch of murals for a local children's museum last fall.
Yes, you did several of them, didn't you? Yes, yeah, children's museum.
3 of them,
yes,
and it took me about 4 weeks to do them all.
yes.
So
you did them all in 4 weeks. That was quick.
Yeah, well, I had to I basically used a process that I'd already developed to do that. I basically projected all the drawings up on the wall using a
great
projector. Did it, so the drawing part, I took care of that all on the computer beforehand. And then,
that's what they say, the girl with the pearl earring guy. Such a great art connoisseur. Can't remember Vermeer. Thank you, Amber.
Yes, Vermeer.
Yes. Sorry about my.
Yeah, they say Vermeer would did that. Would project, and that was a technique that was sort of commonly used, really, amongst those, before photography came along.
Right. Yeah, exactly. The old masters did it, so I can do it too.
Yeah, you do what you got to do to get the product.
Well, also, they were going to be opening in early October, and they brought me in at beginning of September to do this. So I had a pretty short deadline on it, and one of them's good 25 feet long. So I did that one first because that was the biggest, but then the other ones took just as long because they were more detailed.
So we have 2 comments. Dale says, how did our guests learn Blender, books, YouTube, paid courses?
YouTube.
We also have a powerful stash, Mr. TD. Animation looking pretty good, too. This is from Denny Meister on Facebook. On YouTube.
Yes.
So
thank you much.
Yes.
Can we
just
see a
letting you know that you
transformation
have-
before the mustache and afterwards? Like a transformation of that?
I have to animate myself.
Yeah.
Daily beard. Oh yeah, that would be good,
daily
wouldn't it?
daily beard.
So, what are you doing for your day job these days? Are you still
what
a
day
designer?
job? What day job? This is my day job.
You're retired? What? How did? Wait, you're able to do it?
So
what?
So basically, I've spent Basically, I married very well. Let's just leave it. I married well. I'm kind of a kept man.
It's very helpful
but
if you're a
it's
cartoonist.
also because I handle all the finances. We've been very careful with the money we've had. Basically, I met my wife in 2005. We got married in 2007, and we moved out to Boston in 2008.
So
And
she
when I
has a
met
top
her, I was a
cartoonist.
starving artist, and she was a postdoc. Like, had just come out of grad school.
Yeah.
And so for the next 10 years, we continued to live like a starving artist and a grad student, even though she was making actual money in tech and science. So
Well,
we basically
good for
saved
you.
a lot of money and
Yeah.
Yeah, good for
pivoted.
you.
So now I don't basically, as long as the art projects that I do pay for themselves, I can do what I want.
Good.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
And
that's
I'm
amazing.
hoping to also start working more with the local art school and having more interns. And like, I know like the animation students want to learn 3D stuff, but they don't have anybody there to teach it. And so I'm hoping to maybe like pass on what I have learned.
Yes. Well, you're doing an amazing job of that, and again, I'll recommend that the Art of Paradigm Shifts.
So, we have
especially
a
if you're
question.
interested in drawing mangas.
We have a question from Facebook. Any particular channels or resources you'd recommend for people wanting to learn? And I assume they mean Blender.
Right.
Animation.
I mean, I've been picking things from all over the place, but the guy who got me started when I first did a tutorial on Blender that get me like, just how does this thing work? Was a tutorial series by Blender Guru, and you just model a chair, but it taught me the basics of the interface and how Blender is basically set up. And then later on, while I was starting to do the character stuff, I actually set up all the models initially using Daz Studio, which is basically, if you remember Poser, it's sort of like the modern version of Poser. And so they have pre-rigged figures. They're already set up. And so I was initially setting up Kate in Daz Studio, and I would export the meshes out to Blender, move all the points around to like make the werewolf shapes, and then I'd import them back into Daz and then check to see if they worked. And then but I reached a certain point where I could basically set a character up. Plus you could also buy models there. So I could buy clothes, and I made the hair, and you can buy characters, but I did sculpt my own anime version of Kate, but I used a pre-existing model character as a starting point for that was sort of a pseudo anime character, and then I like changed it to hell. But it taught me enough about how to set things up, and then later on I used a piece of software called a bridge that would move the character out of Daz into Blender, and then I did the final like setup all in Blender. I have yet to build a character from scratch all in Blender, which honestly, I'm getting to that point where if I want to do more animation, I sort of reached the limit of what I can do entirely on my own. I might have to start like hiring to find other artists to help me, because my next dream after I get this short film done would be to do a pilot.
Well, I know that Iron Circus just did their pilot for Lackadaisies, and
Yes.
it's one of the most viewed animation pilots on YouTube history.
It's so
good.
It
It's
also
so
was
good.
like 100
Yeah.
people. It was like, oh my god! But
Yeah.
I mean, I gotta hand it to Spike. I mean,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, she knows what
has
she's
known
doing.
what she's wanted from the beginning, and she made that thing happen. And boy, did she pick a good property to do it with. And
Oh, it's just, I mean,
oh, it's
yeah,
phenomenal.
She knows what she's doing. Spike's always been very smart.
Oh my god!
Oh yeah, we really need to get her on as a guest. We need to get her on. She's too busy, I'm sure. But
she's way too busy. She is way too busy. But
you got that?
She'd be a great guest.
This is at the top on my list.
Not as good as Dirk, but she'd be a good guest.
Well,
Dirk's the best. Dirk's my favorite guest.
Well, thank you. I know you're biased in the moment.
So, aside from Paradigm Shift, is there any other stories that you've worked on?
So I do have a whole graphic novel for this like Mars story. There's like concept art for it on my portfolio site called Free Mars Girl, and I've got a whole graphic novel script.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how that's going along.
For a while, and it just didn't sell, unfortunately. I don't know how much that had to do with the pandemic, or if my agent just dropped the ball and then he ghosted me, which was kind of crappy. But these things happen sometimes. But it's waiting in the wings, and part of me is like, man, if I get this animation thing going, I'll make a feature film out of that thing, because it's a tight story. It's really good. I think it would work well as a film. It's just like good hard sci-fi with like a social twist, because it's about this girl hacker on Mars who like discovers her father's in with like bad stuff that's going on. She joins the revolution, so there's like this family drama thing, and then she like discovers he's building the first space battleship everywhere and leaks the plans and this kicks off this whole.
So it starts out as She-Ra, and then.
Is that She-Ra? I never really watched She-Ra. I always wanted to.
The plot of She-Ra, the beginning of it, is that she is one of the enforcers of her father, who's an evil ruler. And then she basically joins the rebels in the first episode because she realizes that their cause is just and correct, and her father's evil. So she constantly has this divide inside of her, because she loves her father. It's her father. He raised her and everything, but what he's doing is wrong. And she has to stand up against what's wrong. And that's why she gets like the power of She-Ra's, because she's doing the right thing. And so, yeah. Father's
name is Hordak.
Hordak was the name of her father.
Yes. Sounds evil.
Yes.
Yep.
Hordak, for God's sake.
Yes. The "Are we the baddies" moment, says Jim Beverly.
Yeah, exactly.
We the baddies.
Exactly.
So, yes. That being said, you're so you got Mars Girl. You have
which I'd love to do that. Yeah.
And I know that you used to do like graphic design and stuff for a period of time.
Yeah.
And aside from like getting into teaching, what other projects are you working on right now?
Oh, it's all film. It's all this film right now.
Well, then you're focused. That's not bad.
Yes, exactly. I mean, yeah. So in terms of hobbies, though, I play music, and I even did all the music for the trailer. Like I made all that, and
I was listening to that.
Yeah, so like composing was something I picked up as a hobby a couple of years ago. I did the I play a lot of Irish and Scottish music. I'm my wife and I host a twice monthly Irish session at a local brew pub, and I go back and forth between fiddle and guitar on that. Play tunes on the fiddle, I back on the guitar, I also play some tunes on the guitar. And then I also, like just the other night, I play for Scottish dances. So and play music.
We have a question from Facebook. Speaking of books, do you know when will Paradigm Shift Instinct be released? I'm just excited to read it.
I have no idea, because I'll have to start drawing comics again before any of that is going to happen. So I know people like really want to start reading that, and I am not going to start releasing unless I know that I can finish it, because that is a 500-page monster.
Wait, how many pages are these? I didn't know page count.
Finish, and I would like to do the movie stuff first. I do have a
wait. That's what you've already done. That's the same again. Wait, this is.
Yeah.
This is 340 pages.
2 books combined.
And this is 235. So yeah, that's like these two again. So you've got
from Facebook, echoing
got that
Mr.
much
French.
again to do.
I've been looking forward to the next part of Paradigm Shift for a long time.
So I will share this.
And it's okay, Dirk. I know that guy from comic shows is the before times.
but that's what you've always planned to do, Dirk. So you better get on with it though, because you told me back in 2002.
Yes. Well, there's part of me that's like, well, if I do a pilot for PS, it would probably actually be the new story. So basically, to revamp the series with new stuff, I could basically adapt what I've written as a series. So,
well, the cool thing is your comic works as a storyboard. So you don't have to storyboard anything because you're just like, here's the comic, which is what Robert Rodriguez did with Sin City. He literally handed the comic to everybody on that set and said, we're making this.
Yes. Yes. I mean, and it is literally what I've been doing for the short is using the comic as storyboards for the animation.
Talking of such things, though, of just giving them your comic and saying, make that. One of our Modern Tale alumni this week just attended the premiere in New York of his show American Born Chinese, based on his Modern Tales webcomic.
Yes.
You know, Gene Yang, our friend, he was a local artist, a lovely guy, and he wrote this amazing book back then. I mean, but even back then, well, we all knew it was very good. I mean, it was so well executed.
Oh, God. It was
the chapter with the plant in the backyard where the guy's trying to pull, he clears the whole backyard. He's trying to pull this plant, right? And he's talking about this breakup that he just had with his girlfriend. And this plant represents like his struggle with that breakup. And when he finally decides, I'm just going to leave the plant alone, I'm going to go off and kind of enjoy myself with my friends and stuff, that's when the stalk of the plant decides to break. And it's the one plant he can't pull out of the backyard. But there's so much metaphor in that story. Like at one point, he's looking out and he says, you go out to nature and you see all these weeds and you go, oh, isn't it beautiful? But those weeds come into your backyard and suddenly they have to be pulled out, and stuff like that. Like there's just so much in that story, and it's like 6 pages long, and it's like perfect. If I taught comics, it would be one of the comics I would teach.
Yeah.
And again, it's from American Born Chinese. It's one of the chapters in from really.
I didn't realize at all really what he had done or what he was doing. I mean, I sort of knew what he was doing, but when you get it episodically and starting at the beginning and all this, it was like, oh yeah, but it wasn't really till it came out as the book, and then I got it when it was released as the book and read it through from beginning to end, and I was like, oh my God. Didn't realize he was doing that. That's amazing.
It's this beautiful story about identity and coming to terms with who you are and your projects, and your loyalty to your family versus your loyalty to your art versus like survival. I mean, there's so much going on in that book that I can't wait.
Okay, but there's one thing I'm really curious what they're doing in the Disney TV show, and that's Cousin Chinky.
Oh wow! Well, I mean, he's just like putting it like here's the racism. Hello.
I mean, I remember when that first appeared, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I know. Holy crap. Like, I was like, what is going on?
I mean, how are they going to do that moment? I don't know. I mean, I'm very curious about that.
I mean, Uncle Roger is very popular on YouTube. So there's something to be said for laughing at yourself, too. You know? And also, like, holding up that mirror. Like, in South Park, they had Token, which was, the character basically saying, okay, this is how other shows handle racism and handle, integration and stuff like that. They held up a mirror to that with the character of Token and everything that was involved with that character. Yep. But kind of being in on the joke, I mean, I wouldn't say it's a joke. I think it's more commentary than a joke.
Yeah. I mean, it's supposed to be about the people who are making fun, right?
Yes. But boy, he does. I mean, it's excellent. It's amazing what he does. Yes, but
it's really.
I don't know how Disney are going to do it.
They're gonna Disney-fy it.
They're gonna Disney-fy it like they did The Simpsons.
Yeah, no, there was no tar baby. He's trapped in honey. That's what they did on Splash Mountain, by the way, for Brer Rabbit. is they got rid of the tar baby and he's trapped in honey now.
Well, that sort of was Disney's genius, though. I mean, if you go back and you read the original, of the fairy tales, like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, at the end, they make the Wicked Witch dance in red-hot iron boots at their wedding till she falls down dead. Now, Disney had a good idea there. He thought, we'll do something, but not that.
He knocked her off a cliff. Yeah, he knocked her off a cliff. But don't forget, Cinderella, one of the sisters tried to cut her foot so that it fit in the shoe.
Oh, yes, try to cut
off her toe or something like that?
She cut off her heel.
Yes.
So that she could fit in the shoe. And there's a bunch of other really messed up stuff about the Cinderella story.
Yes, I remember being terrified of Grimm's fairy tales, and then at some point actually really relishing them.
Yeah,
sounds like childhood was more interesting in the yesteryears of just tell your kid terrifying stuff.
Well, they had to because the world was very dangerous. You went out your door, you're going to die. But off you go because I don't want you in the house.
Yeah, I mean,
we'll have another one.
It was really with the Pinkertons in the United States in the 1800s. That you started getting the police forces in England and in France as well. But around that time period was when you started having police forces emerge and investigators and things like that. Prior to that, you would have someone murdered and killed and never know what happened to them for thousands of years. Prior to the 1800s, when you finally had police forces investigating murders and taking police reports and so your husband stabbed your sister? Okay, well, let's take him into custody and all this sort of thing. And bandits on the roads was a big problem. Gosh, I want to say, and I'm serious, until
I want to read that book.
1800s.
Bandits on the roads was a real problem.
Well, I mean, bandits on the roads, people that would basically take your caravan or take your carriage or whatever. They would hold you up. They would stab you dead if you didn't want to give up your jewelries or whatever.
Yeah.
Your money or your life.
Grail.
Yes. Dick Turpin. He was very famous, the English highwayman.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And so it's, I mentioned the Pinkertons because at least in the United States, they predated the police force. I know that there was police forces that were in England at the time and in France that predated the Pinkertons, but it was kind of this criminology excitement that happened at the late 1800s where people were like, oh, we can look at fingerprints and there's different types of blood and let's try and figure out what the motive is of these people. You had stuff like Jack the Ripper, which kind of excited people's knowledge of
Jack the Ripper. He's very popular here. People love this tale of Sweeney Todd. I always thought it was a bit strange that Americans don't really like meat pies. In England, meat pie is popular. Australia, they love meat pies. America, they don't like meat pies. But I realise because they're super suspicious of meat pies. People do not trust. There's a major distrust of ground meat in the USA.
Yeah.
There is burgers.
Also hot dogs.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so we're making fun of it and stuff of people go out and then they die, but that's basically what happened for so long. Is you go out, you don't know if you're coming home again, and because you could get stabbed on the road, you could
it was a different
fall
place.
And die. Yeah, there weren't antibiotics. What if you're traveling and you get sick, you get cholera or something, and you up and die, right? And there's no
folk medicine. Medicine.
There's no letter sent to your family to let them know that you died in this town, right? And they just know that you went off traveling and you never came home.
Well, as far as the Romans are concerned, we're all aged senators and pretty decrepit, right? I mean, when they weren't really expected to live about as long as we were. So
I don't know how long. I would think Romans could live quite a long time if they stopped drinking all that lead stuff.
Probably yes, I do.
Don't forget about
stop making those lead pipes.
Well, if you were
lead
a rich Roman, then you'd probably be okay. But
well, it's confusing, yes, because in the Bible they lived for 700 years, didn't they? Like Methuselah, they had peak
but
aging.
Don't forget, in Roman times, you would have you would have infant death. You would have people die throughout their lifetimes, but you would also have people living into their 70s and 80s.
Yeah, infant death was a real problem. I read this book, the Paleolithic diet that came in the 80s or the 90s.
Yeah.
It's like the forerunner to the Atkins stuff. Yeah. And what these two authors said is life expectancy was about the same in hunter-gatherer cultures, but the deaths in infancy were much higher, and when you average in deaths at 1 and 2 years old, they bring the life expectancy down to like 40.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that if you made it to a certain age, maybe 5 or 6, you had about the lifespan of modern people. It's just a lot of people died before that.
Well, I mean,
so it's misleading.
Michelangelo, the artist, he lived during the Renaissance, right? He lived until he was 88 years old. And so, I mean, that's still considered old by today's standards.
That's 10 years.
Well, Al Jaffe lived to be 102, so up yours, Michelangelo.
What's that guy? What's that finance guy?
I mean, apparently,
Munger.
the secret to longevity is working for Mad Magazine.
Yes, that's good. I think
isn't that the secret for
being able to laugh is part of it.
Or I'm thinking of Lampoon, National Lampoon.
Yeah.
The secret that's like the secret to shortgevity.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Let's see. Another question. So, with your backgrounds and stuff, you said you used to use SketchUp.
Yeah.
Are you building backgrounds then in Blender now? Are you still using those old SketchUp designs?
Well, actually, some of the stuff that appears in the film actually is based on some stuff that I had made in SketchUp originally. There's a set where it's all Kate's bedroom, and that was originally a set that I built in SketchUp, and then I brought it over into Blender and added things and cleaned it up. But what I've noticed is that SketchUp does not export very clean models, so I had to do a ton of
it's
cleaning
not free anymore either.
It is not, and I have been paying for it for the last few years because I've got so much stuff that I've made in it, and I'm gonna have to systematically go and convert it all into Blender, and then I can turn off my subscription. But
Blender's not going to be that difficult to convert it into. I mean,
pretty easy.
I find
I just have a lot of stuff.
Well, I find rooms and objects are so much easier to make than people in Blender. And so, or in any 3D thing. So, it's going to take you a lot less time to make those spaces.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Now than having to make the characters.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God. Making stuff is so much easier than making people.
That's like a business model, I think. You do a subscription service and all your stuff is kind of in their ecosystem, and it's not easy to get out. We started using some audio software for collaboration during the pandemic, and it's called Soundtrap. And it has kind of tracked. That's what it's called.
The name
that's what
gives
it's
you
called.
a clue.
But
it's
I mean,
named, apparently.
It's a double entendre because it's called Soundtrap, but it's for trap music. I don't think that they understood the second meaning, because now it's really hard to get our stuff out of there.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, because it's a soundtrack.
Yeah.
Well, one of the reasons, when I did the Kickstarter, I also made the music for my trailers for that. And when I'd first done the first trailer for that you see, I'd originally used some music that I'd found on a service someplace, and I was gonna use that. And then I came back, I'd done that in the spring and came back in the summer, and I was gonna okay, let's finalize this thing. Let me buy that. And they'd switched over to a subscription model. I was like, oh, hell no, I'm not gonna buy a subscription for one track. Are you serious? So I ended up writing my own that kind of was the same vibe but sounded completely differently, and ended up using that instead.
Don't worry, Dirk. Look, just wait another 5 or 6 years, and you're just basically going to be able to say, "Here's my paradigm shift graphic novel files. Make a movie," and it will be able to make a movie straight from your book.
Have you seen the AI
tools
stuff?
Are going to make the types of things that I'm doing now much easier to do.
You're just gonna stick it into something that's gonna resemble a shredder. And it
will shred it as you feed. You have to feed the original art in, and it will get shredded as you feed it in. But
yeah, and you're just gonna give it the whole book.
That's it's all anime, but they made it out of videos of themselves.
Yeah,
and just fed it through Stable Diffusion.
Yeah,
it's kind of janky looking, but at the same time, you can this is sort of version 1. I could see using that to basically make things however you want them to look. the question is, can you fairly compensate all the people whose data you used to train the damn thing?
Yes, well, yes, the copyright issue. But Amber's just sort of giving me a glimpse of the future now. I think the day's going to come where human beings are going to ask to shred themselves to enter the digital shredder and become a sort of virtual being in a robotic body.
We're going to have Futurama suicide booths.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It's going to be made very attractive.
Yeah, go on with your bad self.
Have you guys seen some of the stuff in Canada?
What about it?
Well, the Canadian government is pushing this. They don't call it like assisted suicide or state-funded suicide, but they call it something else, and they're trying to portray it as like not a bad thing, and it's kind of freaky and kind of interesting. I forget what they call it though. They don't call it assisted suicide.
Well,
there was an article in the Atlantic about that this week.
At the same time, I think the option's important because there are people that suffer from, in pain and have made that decision for themselves that they don't want to be in pain anymore.
Well, I get that, but these are like ads that like I assume like run on like, where a lot of people see them.
I imagine it's to get rid of the stigma of suicide.
It's just weird.
I imagine it's to get rid of the stigma because there's people that don't want to embarrass their families or whatever, but they also don't want to be a burden on that family.
Sure,
and
but
so
I think we'd probably have to see one of these things because it just struck me as like, why is the state putting money into advertising assisted suicide?
Well, that's one way to solve the.
Right.
I mean, you guys are looking at it in a morbid way, but my grandfather committed suicide, and he did so because he was in incredible amounts of pain, and he did it with a gun because there were no options like state assisted suicide. If there were, he would have had that conversation with the family and let us know. Instead, it was shocking. Because we didn't know, and we didn't know he was suffering that much, and so I feel like the option is important, and I support Canada in that decision to have state-assisted suicide because you should have doctor-assisted suicide. It shouldn't be a scary, awful thing like an abortion that you have to do in some back alley.
Yes, it's a difficult thing, isn't it? And it's like individuals need to have the freedom to make the choices they need to make, but it's a very difficult and complex issue. And I think it's a bit beyond the scope of this show, where it's
I know.
I thought that was the scope of this show.
But we can roam freely, and yes, I know, and I feel like if Jurt was more of an expert on this subject.
Yeah.
Just quickly, what did the Atlantic article say about it?
Oh, it was more on the there was definitely some unintended consequences that were happening due to it. It was like almost like doctors were almost pushing it on certain patients.
Yes.
That's the worry about it. There's two sides to human nature. So
I'm in favor of having the option, but I'm not in favor of like.
Yes.
Well,
exactly.
Pamphlet in the doctor's office.
I would recommend reading the article, not just taking my word.
Definitely. I recommend everybody read more.
Office, not the doctor going, "Here's a pamphlet." You know what I mean?
Right.
We have.
Read the article. I don't think I could do it real justice.
Okay, I'll check it out.
Yeah. Well, that's a good topic for a show, and I think the people who are involved in it. I had some recent experience. I don't know. I feel like it's a really sensitive issue.
It is. It is.
I believe people should have the right, of course, too. And I think most reasonable people think that you should have the right. It's just that I feel like when the state gets involved and there's advertising and there's money to be made, you can have some bad outcomes.
Yeah. I think it's the unintended consequences aspect. It's not this shouldn't happen. It's the maybe we didn't think all this through and maybe we need to revisit.
Well, we do have a bit of debate on these topics on the show, and that's fair game. Chris and Amber are both very widely read on different subjects.
It's the religious connotation. That's what a lot of people. That's the stigma of it. Is that in Christianity it says if you commit suicide, your soul goes to purgatory. Right? It says that in Catholicism.
I thought it goes to hell. That's what I was told.
In Catholicism, it's purgatory. I'm
Catholic. Really? You
I
go
was
to
told
purgatory?
purgatory. Yeah,
Upgraded, like it.
If you read Dante's Inferno, the Divine Comedy, that's where the souls of suicides go, is purgatory. So I'm going off of that. I'm going off of what I learned from my priest.
My Catholic church wasn't my like the schools that I went to, the Catholic schools I went to. There was no reading Dante's Inferno in those schools.
Yeah.
Right. Well, listen. David Attenborough said something good. He said, all over the world, we all want to know, where we came from, what's going on. We all have different stories. And there's basically two stories. There's the one that you learned on your mother's knee. And that's the one that is different all over the world. Everywhere you go, there's a different story. And then there's another story that's written in the rocks and the fossil record. And all over the world, that's the same story. So, you got to choose which one you want to believe.
Well, but what I was getting at was the religious stigma of suicide is still hanging heavy over people. And I think that the intent of the Canadian ads was to get rid of a lot of that stigma.
Right.
It's because people believe that when you commit suicide, your soul goes to hell or purgatory, right? In What Dreams May Come, that's what happens to her soul, because she couldn't live without Robin Williams' character. She commits suicide, and he trades places with her so that she could go to heaven. He was willing to stay in hell. And it's an interesting thing, and I think that it needs to be explored more than just shut down.
Right. I met someone who worked on that film, like doing the sets for that film, and said it was just the most amazing experience. They could go completely wild.
That was a really beautiful film.
The tree that grows in that movie, they had to write one of the first procedurally generated codes ever in coding for that tree to grow. And so the guy...
Oh, yes. That was the early days of CGI, yes.
Yeah, he set up the Fibonacci sequence. And he basically said that you're going to pull from the Fibonacci sequence, X amount of numbers, I think going up to 9 for branches. And so you would have, the first one come out, and then it would split into 3, and then that would split into 5, and that would split into, 7 or 9 or whatever the next number is.
Yeah. Well, you randomize it a bit.
Exactly. And so he set it between the numbers of 1 and 9. And so when each time a branch split off, it would reset, and then it would pick a random number for branches between 1 and 9. And so when he wrote out the code, he had no idea if it would work or not. And the first time he rendered it was in front of the studio execs, and they were like, yeah, that's the tree. Right, wow. That's exactly what I saw. And he's like, holy shit, I just made a tree grow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I've been playing a little bit with procedurally generated. One of the things I was playing around in the background was trying to I wanted to make that in Blender. I wanted to figure out how to make, be able to just make random trees.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things I could find the YouTube link somewhere, but somebody, I looked at 2 or 3 different videos and then cobbled them together to create a procedurally generated tree, and it looks okay. It needs some work, but it was pretty cool to figure out how to make
branches grow,
how to have branches come out of other models. And it wasn't I wish I could do it entirely just basically with code, but I did have to have some seed models to as branches and trunks and things to and then it sort of randomly sticks them on, and then you can change the width, the angle that the branches are at, or how many appear, or
what you may want to explore is Unity. Unity is designed for game development, but you can bring Blender models into it, and it takes scripting from C#. So then that way you can do stuff like that, create full scripts that will create the tree.
Yeah, and then Blender has a Python backend, and you can do more with it. It's just my coding kung fu is just not high enough for that sort of thing.
Yes, it's a rabbit hole as an artist to sort of go down, and as an valid form of artistic expression, and you can go and be a computer coding artist. You got to really think what you want to, what you want to spend your time doing. I suppose.
I did make a different procedural thing that does appear in the film. I did make procedural buildings that I used to make a whole Chicago skyline.
Yay, Chicago skyline made.
I could show you that if you wanted to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Share your screen.
That seems like it would be like difficult to do that. I mean, if I'm understanding
it was
right.
like Legos.
Yes.
Like wouldn't it just have all kinds of like it would kind of like mimic it, not like the actual skyline, but something similar to it, right? Because you're basically growing it.
Yeah. Here, let me find the let me find my sources here so I can share them. Oh, come on. Oh, there it is. Textures. I'll just stare. Oh, here we go. I'll pull up the actual file in the background, and then I'll show you some stills first. Half a second.
Yeah, sorry. I feel like I should.
I've thought about the
sorry. I've fallen down the laptop rabbit hole here where I'm like trying to find things.
Well, that's right. Chris and I, Chris and I'll have a talk about.
Well, I could talk about the whole coding thing.
Chris, have a rant now. Tell us what you think.
Oh,
Chris,
sweet. Well, no, I was just thinking about what you said about like coding and being an artist, and like I've thought about like learning. I mean, I went to back to school to learn how to code in Python, and the audio package that I use, it can one of the scripts that it takes is Python, and I've thought about coding my own like plugins and stuff like that, but I'm like, why? Do I want to go down that hole?
Yeah.
Or do I just want to use people's I mean, the stuff. There's so many people that have coded all this great stuff already. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's see. Oh gosh.
Yeah. I mean, yes. I mean, I guess that's what AI is really great at: taking what's already been done. You don't need to do that again. So it really sort of forces you to. Well, it's just another thing. Forces you to go back on your originality. And I think the only problem I have with it is like, well, are the artists that these things are fed on being properly compensated?
Yeah, that's where it kind of comes down to. All right, I'm going to share my screen here.
Well, what about just data in general, like our user data? I mean, that's used to develop very profitable products, and nobody's getting compensated for any of that. So
I don't know if you guys can see this. Can you see this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It looks good. Yes.
Yeah. So this was all generated using procedural buildings, except for a couple of like this building and this building.
Those are like landmarks.
Where customized, but using the same base. And these are basically built kind of like with Lego bricks, essentially. Every building is made out of about, well, imagine like you've got any given random floor. So you've got like one version of like windows, and then you've got another block. And these are all like cubes. These are like, 1 meter cubes or whatever. And one is a corner piece, and one's like a side of a building. And then another one's sort of an alternate version that could either be like some sort of vertical thing, and then there's a ground floor and there's a top floor, and then there's a version with the lights that are on and the version with lights that are off, and then let's see if Blender is loaded up the.
And can you change the amount of lights?
Yes, you can actually change the amount of lights. Oh shoot!
That seems like a tool that you could package and sell in some way.
Well, I mean, again, this is something I found. I found the. Here we are. Let me turn on the rendering so you can actually see them turn on. Yeah, there they are. And they really only work from like one angle, because once you start moving the camera around, you realize they're all just sort of placed in 2 dimensions, so I can like fill out the skyline. Oh, and of course it's like my it's having to like compile textures and stuff. Now, so it's got the little scrolly thing. But like, I mean, one of the things I did a lot in the comic was make all these make all these cityscapes, and I was like, how am I gonna do that in 3D? I could either just draw one and make a matte painting, or it was trying to like put the sky in.
But there are places that you can sort of go and buy little code sort of snippets and things like this.
Yeah.
When they do it. Yeah. Look at how that pans out.
Really
that
close,
seems like that'd be really useful.
Like, the buildings, the lights are actually just a basic texture. They're just so when you pull back, they just have some variation.
Yeah, that's great. Looks like there's stuff going on or whatever. Yeah, so randomized. Yeah, that's really good.
That's cool.
You know what would be really cool is when you get further in your animation to have variation on that texture, so it looks like people are moving in and out.
Oh, that would be amazing. Hopefully, when I have my team, I'll be able to do all sorts of things.
Yeah. You've got that one intern. You got one high school intern.
I want to get my team.
Don't feel bad about being a kept cartoonist. Judd Winnick, who does Hilo, he's the same way. His wife's a doctor.
Yeah. My wife works for MIT, and we've done well by that. So
good. Yeah. No wonder she moved to Boston.
It wasn't MIT when we first moved here. It was just a company, and then she got a lab job when we were here after a few years, and it's worked out really well for us.
Nice. Yeah, that's very cool. So I'm curious, with her technical background, does she help you with this stuff?
No, but she's very impressed by it. She's like, "That's really cool," and she actually understands like the programming aspect of it and whatnot. But we also love watching cartoons together. So, I got something.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm gonna post this. Probably this week, maybe today or tomorrow. But this is another really silly thing that I made.
Flozax Rollins from my Twitch says, looking at my wife who just got her software engineering degree.
Yeah. It was more than just like, hey, honey, will you pay for my thing? It was more like,
Flozax is also a cartoonist.
Yes.
I have to say that Flozax is also a cartoonist, and we've been talking on Twitch and stuff. So you should know that he's like, okay, it's not just me.
Yeah, it's a legit thing.
Yeah.
All right, here you go.
Yeah, I'm not sure all these women wanted to join the workforce thing. I'm not sure they really thought that out, but Go ahead.
All right. So, you've seen it here first.
Ooh.
Oh, this is her Sailor Moon transformation.
Yeah, like, oh wow, yes, like at the beginning, like He-Man when he holds up the power. Yay!
So it's a parody of Miraculous.
You need some music. You need that music with it. Like when He-Man, he goes, what does he do? I can't remember. He goes, I have the power.
But yes, that's the.
Wait. Is her statement going to be by the power of the moon? I'm slaughtering you or something?
Oh, there's going to be a howl. She's going to go.
Sailor Moon version, which we're working on over here, because I mean these are really just animation tests to see if I could get the rig working. But
yeah,
I mean,
I love that. I love that. That made me see the whole thing in a whole new way. I really love that. That was great.
So I'm gonna do the whole like Sailor Moon thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely,
I love
it. Same soundtrack and everything. These are just tests, but I'm gonna totally post these because
that will be amazing. Yes.
Yes. You need to post this.
You were saying that's from Miraculous? That's something from. Because my daughter was a big Miraculous fan for a while. And so I watched some of it.
Pleasure viewing for me and my wife.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
You have to get a howl in there. Like, sounds really important. You've got to get her. You've got to somehow record the perfect howl for her.
It's funny in the cartoon, in the comics, she never howls.
But in this thing, there's got to be a howl. You've got to have. There's got to be like some sort of signature howl that you create.
She does a lot of growling in the comics.
She does a lot of growling. She's more of a growler than a howler.
I don't care. For the title, I'm telling you, as the movie producer, you need a good howl in there. Like, sound is really so important for a movie. So, like, she's got to have a sound. She's a werewolf. She's got to have a howl.
There it is. There's the howl.
Yeah, she's going woohoo or whatever it is. Whatever, you got to get someone. You got to get a howler in the studio and like record some howls.
Yes. Now I'm just thinking of Zootopia, freaking howlers.
Yeah.
Zootopia, is that
says,
the?
I would love to learn how to do 3D animation. I would be able to solve a lot of problems if I know how to make realistic looking images with 3D.
That was, yeah, it's a process. It's very different than drawing. I mean, I'm leaning on all my drawing skills for like the composition and also like knowing how to pose the character in a way that will look good. But it's so different than drawing because you really have to think of everything in 3D. I mean, it's like playing with an action figure, except it's all on screen. But like, it's hard for me to say how do you get started, because I started in like 1994 or something like that with very, very primitive 3D software, which could barely do anything in comparison to what Blender can do.
Yeah, 1994.
Yeah.
I would say that's where I would start, is YouTube University. You type into YouTube, how do I blank? And there's somebody somewhere that's made a video for you.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely start with a tutorial on something like Blender, or whatever software package you happen to have. Blender is easy because it's free and it's actually extremely powerful. It's just the interface is very different than anything else, but once I got used to it, it was awesome. Yeah, it's absolutely free.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's open source. It's open source software.
So I want to ask you like a self-serving question. I've thought about animation for like some of our music, for like music videos.
Yeah.
I mean, so the thing that's always deterred me is I thought it would take forever. It's going to take over my life. I'll stop being a musician and I'll start being an animator.
I mean, it did take over my life, to be fair.
Oh, okay. Well, then I have no further questions. But I was going to say, like, where would you point somebody to get started where they could actually get something up and running faster? Is that not a?
Well, I mean,
not
well, in the case of if you want to do character stuff, like there was a joke about making your own smut, but like if you want to learn the basics of character stuff without having to deal with modeling or anything like that, play with Daz Studio, because it's got free models and you can play with the camera, and the characters are already rigged, so you can just move them around, and they're somewhat customizable, and of course it's really a platform for you to buy stuff off their site. But in terms of if you want to play with character animation, that's like an easy place to start. It's not like I wouldn't want to animate anything big in it, but it's definitely a place to start. And from there, once I got stuff out of there into Blender, I was able to like really start playing with the fundamentals of character animation. And even then, for me, it's always been I have to have a project. If I have a project, then I will just learn whatever I need to learn to do the project.
Yeah.
But there's so many different things with animation. It's like it's hard because I can't just say, oh well, I just started this last year and now I have this thing here. I guess I'll turn off the screen share, because
I mean, could in Daz, could I take pictures of my bandmate and just slap their face, like map the face onto? I mean, it'll look janky.
I think somebody has come up with a utility that will do that, but like if I had the screen up, I could show you what a texture map looks like for a face, and it's like you take the face and you unwrap it, and it's like the face is like right in the middle, and then there's like the rest of the skin is sort of like
it's funny,
it's kind of weird looking, but
I forget which game it was. It was a medieval game, but they had a texture map for the random dude's head, like NPC's head, as like the base texture map for things. Okay, so if the map didn't show up, it would have this face on it. So it was funny because you would be going through this game and like the sky would change and there'd be this huge face staring down at you. But I don't remember what game it was.
That's hilarious. I love game bugs like that.
Yeah, and sometimes it would be like the rock texture wouldn't load up, and so you'd have this like rock staring at you as you're walking by.
Could you use your phone on like the panorama setting and sort of like go like this around to like the head to make and get a sort of texture map that way?
Photoshopping.
You'd have to sort of tweak it a bit, but you might
but you might be able to just like take the head and then match the skin tone and then just do the face part. But
because I've seen it where if you just project a face,
you actually have to like do the model part.
Yeah, but you don't need a very detailed model, I don't think, for that. Like, because I've seen it where like you just project a face onto a shot dummy, with a standard-looking face, which these things are, and it looks pretty effective. If the lighting is right. I mean, that's, I don't know. It depends. Not on a close-up, but
yeah. I mean, I'm thinking down and dirty. Like, it doesn't have to be. I mean, it might be cooler if it is just really rough. I'm not trying.
I'm pretty sure that there are. People have made things where you can take the picture and turn it into a model, but I just haven't used them. So I can't name a particular software, but if you Google it, like picture to 3D model type thing, I know they
feel like Sorry, I just think all the computers are going to be doing it themselves in a minute. You won't need.
Oh,
they
will. They absolutely will. This stuff.
You just look in the camera.
It's a question of how long will it take and how much will it cost.
I was going to bring this up, but have you guys seen it's like Chat GPT for a video where you give it text prompts and it makes a video for you? Have you seen any of that stuff?
I've seen the output,
creepy.
but I haven't actually.
No, I'm serious. Okay, there's one. I will find it. Okay, and what it is
I don't need to see a creepy
it's Will Smith eating spaghetti, and it's like bizarre.
Well,
I don't like looking at these creepy things that the AI
kind of
spit out.
Yeah. Oh, when you put
they are
things on
kind
the
of
internet and then they start making things that like.
Yeah, it's kind of Mid-Journey-ish. It's kind of weird at this point, but
yeah.
Some of them are amazing. Like there was one yesterday of like states depicted as gods, which I had to share, and that was just great.
That's very Leviathan. That's very like Hobbesian.
Okay.
I mean, you can do them all different ways, I guess, but I like that concept. And then I just thought, then now they need to fight.
All right, so this is the video right here. This is AI generated.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's very that's AI janky right there. Oh, that is so AI janky.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but this is like Uncanny Valley.
Yeah, but this is like just new. Just think how quickly it's going to get better.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the machine will never have context, and that's the thing the artist is going to have to supply, for sure.
Well, this is a theory. This is what Gary Kasparov was saying, like after all his experiences playing against Deep Blue and stuff. That that they can, they can outthink us, but will they have? They can't. You have to always set a parameter. They can't think outside the box.
That's the GAI stuff.
They can't come up with anything original. They can't. They don't have a desire to do it.
They generated a 1993 ad. Right, but this isn't real. This is AI.
Right.
It looks it.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah. I mean
it's weird that it didn't get.
Look at those hands! Oh my God, those hands!
The hands
are always janky.
Well, it's the Tower of Babel again. We're back to the Tower of Babel. Yes. In that we had a moment where we had sort of some truth of like photography and images, but I think even early on, I mean, there was even like it. What is it in Dune or one of these things? They call it the web of lies. It's just like it's you're not going to believe any. No photograph or audio or anything is going to be believable. So we're going to back to credible sources.
This is great.
Do you think this is great?
Yeah, it's great. It's hilarious. I mean, the corn was moving on the plate. The corn looked like it was alive.
Moving.
Oh my! Oh
yeah.
My
these
God.
are AI generated.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
There's another one. There's a Burger Blast ad from 1995. You guys want to see that one? It's even weirder.
Oh my God!
That looks like it's mixed the raisins with turds.
It's mixed the people with the food.
Yeah.
But they're like the California raisins. Do you remember them? They used to come on. I heard it on the grapevine.
This is what they mean by the paperclip problem. See, this is what AIs will try to do to the real world.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this one.
But we were like, I was quite interesting, like that guy who was sort of, the former Google guy.
The sound is super bizarre because they used Chat GPT and they used AI chat boxes with artificial voices to create the voices and things of whatever Chat GPT came up with.
Oh my God.
So like the sound's bizarre on these. This is something that like the Midjourney guys have been doing to entertain themselves, and it's nightmare fuel for me.
Well, actually, that you're right. It is like something out of a dream or a nightmare. In that, your brain is just sort of randomly feeding all this sort of stuff, and you're processing. But your brain does something useful. Like this is just sort of like, okay, well.
Here's the hallucinations right here.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, this is like what happens, then you take some acid or something, and then suddenly it's all like this.
And this is what you get.
Really? These are the hallucinations you get on acid?
The internet was the humanity's id, but here you go. Here it is.
Yeah.
It depends how much you took.
I mean, to me, the weird thing is like what trouble it's having differentiating humans from the environment. Like you would think it would get that one thing right, that like the food is not a part of your face, or
they have zero context. It's just.
Well, I'm not going to Burger Blast after that. I'm sorry if someone sees that and thinks I want to go to Burger Blast.
Yeah. So that's...
Well, like, what do you mean by context, Dirk?
Well, I mean, so like actual experience in the real world. How do things actually fit together? What is like the world is sticky. The world is filled with dog hair. The world is full of things that a computer there's zero connection between the bits that they've been fed from stuff off the internet and the physical
the Wizard of Oz
space that we inhabit.
It's an 80s samurai film.
Like it can reinterpret the media, and it does a really good job of it, except for the fact that it has absolutely no idea what it's actually looking at.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's
and that's
what I mean
the
by
weird
context.
part.
It doesn't know what a person is. It just has has a correlation of data that comes up. There's word person, and then there's data that associates with the word.
I'm thinking now of Douglas Adams, and he said, if you're doing something and all the old people are going tut tut tut, and all the young people love it, then you're probably on the right path. And I don't know, are we just all going like tut 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 all this stuff?
Maybe. I mean, I think these are going to be really powerful tools. They might also, in the wrong hands or given the right. I mean, I watched this really. It was simultaneously enlightening and hilarious and terrifying. It was this interview between a couple of like crypto guys and this like AI researcher who has really looked into like the hard problem of the alignment. Trying to get the general AI to do what you want it to do, and he's a huge pessimist about it. Like gigantic. Yadkovsky, I think is his name. Anyway, there was like these two crypto guys that are like, AI is going to change everything. It's going to be great. And by the time this interview was over, they're like, going to destroy the world. It's going to be horrible. I totally felt them down.
Yeah.
I mean,
there. Do you guys remember when they were talking about deep dreaming several years ago? Because that's what evolved into Midjourney and all of these kind of visual AIs. What they found with deep dreaming, I remember they were.
I do remember this.
We talked about this before on the show, where they would ask, they would show it a bunch of pictures of like, people using barbells and stuff like that, and then they would ask it to show it barbells, and it would generate barbells, but it would have an arm attached, right? And it would think that the barbells need to have the arm attached, so they'd have to upload a bunch of pictures of barbells without arms in order to say, okay, this is the barbell, so that the computer could distinguish between the arm and the barbell and stuff like that.
Right.
And so the deep dreaming, when you would upload another image and you would basically say, okay, find stuff in this image, the computer was going crazy, going, is this a face? Is this a foot? Is this an arm? Are there three faces as part of this face? Right? And the more it rendered, the weirder it got, because it didn't know what it was looking at. It seems that the technology has kind of taught it a little bit to identify.
Gotten a little bit.
This is a face, this is a hand, but it doesn't know what a hand looks like.
Right. It has a set of data that says it associates with hand, but it doesn't have any concept of the structure of a hand.
Ooh.
It doesn't have any concept of what a hand is for, or what you use a hand for.
That just seems like so. Yeah, that just seems like so weird to me that it wouldn't get that.
How do you train it to know that without it having a hand? It's always going to be alien. It doesn't mean it won't be useful. I'm very certain that it will, in many contexts, be useful. I'm seriously considering putting Stable Diffusion on my new laptop and training it with my art, just to see if I could train it to put out decent stuff if I hand it a thumbnail sketch and a snippet of script. I would be really interested to see, could that be used to speed up the comics process? Not to replace the comics process, but speed up. I mean, if I get back to drawing the next book and it's as big, unless I find a way to cut that story down, I don't know exactly how I'm going to get that thing done in a reasonable amount of time unless I'm really enjoying the process. Because that's what it boils down for me. If I'm not enjoying the process, then no artwork happens. It's.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
So I am sharing this AI generated episode that one of our viewers shared with us, which is AI generated steamed hands.
All right. After this, I gotta cut out.
Gotta bounce.
I gotta bounce.
Mr. Chalmers, come in. Lunch is almost ready.
Oh, this
Damn
is
it.
The Simpsons?
Why did I have to burn the commune?
But this is AI generated.
Get some bastardo del grappa to replace the burnt commune. I burned the prune cake, so I had to make something else.
Why is there a dead duck in the oven?
I wonder what I can make now. Corn dab. That should do the trick. Now all I need is some butter, honey, and cinnamon, and I'll have a new blintz in no time. Now, where did I put the butter? I thought you might like duck for dinner. I know it's your favorite.
My favorite is not duck, it's chicken. And I don't eat duck because I'm a vegetarian.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there because it's 10 minutes. But you guys get the idea of
this sounds like a couple of guys got high and wrote a script and
ChatGPT.
Check out the music. The music definitely reminds me of the Simpsons music.
The music is AI generated. They described the scene into another program that basically created the animations. So they're like, oh yeah, these two guys are talking about, the dinner being destroyed and blah blah blah, and this entire thing was created by computers,
right? With just a couple of prompts. Yeah, it's pretty bizarre.
Yeah, so that's what one of our viewers shared with us.
Yeah.
I thought I'd share it with you.
That is.
I mean,
bizarre.
there's the whole AI generated Jerry Seinfeld stuff too.
Yeah, they actually had to pull that off the air because off the air. They had to stop the live stream of it because it went racist on them.
It did. I heard about that. I've been following this fairly closely.
It went racist on them. What I find
it probably wanted to get more ratings. It probably realized if it went racist, it would get more ratings.
So you know how AI programs like Midjourney and Stable Diffusion can't render writing right now. They create these weird
it just kind of creates weird.
Anyway, there's a guy working on taking ChatGPT inputs into Stable Diffusion in order to make those actual words, right?
Right.
And the AI doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
Right.
And so he keeps getting words showing up as eyes because he's trying to identify different parts and saying, is this the word? Is this the word? And no, it's on the wall. You've rendered it on the wall, right? But it doesn't know what the wall is, right? And so the whole wall
it has no idea what wall is.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's interesting because he's been tracking his progress in one of the AI groups that I infiltrated on Facebook. And I like it when they talk about why it's not working and what's not working. Right?
Yes.
When they're like, oh, look
It's like
at
the
my
lowest
perfectly
level of
rendered
espionage.
But yeah,
All right,
when
you
they're
guys,
like, this is bizarre.
oh, yeah.
I know. Bye, Chris.
Yeah, sorry,
All right,
sorry.
Chris,
I'm,
Chris,
I'm gonna
Chris.
bounce.
Good
Thank you,
Good
Dirk.
to meet you.
Thanks,
Yeah,
buddy.
good to meet you.
Good to see you.
I'm impressed by what you're doing. That's pretty impressive.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So keep on
I'm just
keeping on.
having so much fun.
Good.
All right,
Good, you
all right,
should.
you guys. I'm
Yes.
taking off.
All right, love you,
Bye.
buddy. See you soon.
All right.
Yeah, but again, I've been following this guy's stuff because he's been going into the process of him trying to teach the computer and how difficult it has actually been to get the computer to understand him.
Right.
You know, because he can't just go in with code and tell it this is
Right.
you know, whatever it is, because the computer is the one rendering the image. And so somewhere within that rendering, it's creating that fake lettering, but
Yeah.
it has no idea what it's doing. You're
It's
right.
There's a black box there that you're trying to like poke things in and hope you get something useful on the other end.
Yeah. And
It sounds like I played with like Dolly for like 2 seconds. And I was like, this is frustrating, and I don't
Yeah.
think I like it.
I had some fun with the one where you could draw into it, like you could do a little doodle into it, and that actually sort of blew me away. I just did like a crummy little Zardoz drawing, a little Dalek drawing, and it knew what I was doing. I mean, it was like, wow.
It's like, oh yeah, these are eyes. This is a nose.
Yeah.
This must be the mouth, right?
Yeah.
And then it
That
would
sounds
render
more
different
fun.
faces.
That that's where it's
Playing
going though. I mean, it's like
off-mode sounds
yeah.
more fun to me than it's like, oh,
But
here,
this-
make this thing for me, because I
But this
didn't like
is the
Clippy.
difference.
I
But
don't
this is the difference between the art and the AI, okay? Is I remember when I was first drawing comics, learning about the difference between structure and surface, right? So
Yes.
structure is someone like Jim Lee who knows how to draw the body, or Will Eisner, or anyone else who's an amazing artist that you can think of, Mobius, they have structure there that it doesn't matter what you render on top of it, it's always going to look good because the structure's good, right?
Exactly.
And then you had surface artists like Todd McFarlane who did not have a strong structure, but their surface looks so good that people would ignore the structure and just look at the surface and say, oh, I like that art, right? And Todd McFarlane drew awesome Spider-Man, but terrible Peter Parkers.
Right.
And so I feel like the AI stuff is all surface right now. And when they teach it structure is when we're really, really going to get scared. When
Right.
it knows these are words, this is a wall, this is face.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I know that there's people playing around with it with 3D stuff, so.
Yeah. I mean, for my work, I have to, have a little VTuber animation thing. And I've been researching it and finding out about there's whole rigs you can buy that motion track your hands, your faces, your bodies.
Yeah.
If you wanted to do a full body motion track setup at home, you can do that now for probably about $300.
Right.
Oh wait, Amber, weren't you going to introduce us to a friend of yours?
Oh, are you talking about my little surprise?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I
perfect
gotta
time.
set him up. I gotta set him up.
All right.
So,
You gotta coax him into the room.
I gotta coax him into the room. Give me a second. Yeah,
Yeah, we'll give her a minute there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, well it's great to see you, Dirk. Yes, I mean, oh my goodness, yes. Well, it's been
Yeah.
we've known each other a long time now, and how are you doing otherwise? Like, you're doing good. Your
I'm
health is
great.
good. You're looking well. You survived the pandemic, okay?
Yeah, I've actually been going to the gym for the last year and a half, and
Oh, good. Yes.
now, which is
Yes.
crazy, but
Well, I'm a big believer in that. Like, I see this acupuncture guy. I talk about this. Or like I learned like a lot of sort of stretching. And movement and bending.
Yeah,
and that's what I've really learned is very important. Just sort of these gentle stretching exercises. You don't really need to be sort of going like, really
Right.
busting your gut with the lifting the weights and all this and the cardio. Not even, I mean, it's all good for you, but really you need to be also just movement and range of movement and stretching and all that. Like really does.
I got started with yoga. Oh my god!
Oh yeah, yoga's fantastic. Hello. So
Hello.
Who is this?
Oh, I don't know. It's just a cat. Again, from my end, I can't see anything. You guys are frozen. because of the processing power that's required from my computer.
Right.
It's a little, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's getting better.
It's getting a little stuttery, but that's because my computer just doesn't have the processing power for it. I need to get a better computer. But yeah, this is mocap with just a webcam.
It's mocat. All right, we're calling it mocat.
Mocat. Yes,
Mocat. This is Mocat.
Hey mocat, hey mocat, you looking cool. I like your purple. Did you get a dye job or is that natural?
Well, my cat Spontaneous in my comic was always purple, and so that's why I rendered a purple cat.
Did you write a comic mocat? I didn't know that.
Yes, an amazing comic. You should buy it.
What else?
Does it involve mice?
No, it doesn't. But yeah, this is, I mean, we were talking about AI, and we were talking about AI being tools. And I think this is an example of an AI being a tool. It's not impeding anything. The person who made the cat model got paid for it because I paid them money.
Oh,
you know? And
but what happens if you turn off your virtual background?
If I turn off my virtual background,
that's probably slowing it down, isn't it?
Okay, let me try that and see if that helps a little bit.
Because it's probably got its own virtual background.
Well, that's
I can see it's got its own background. So like the virtual background's probably driving it crazy.
No. I had the background rendered in the program.
Yeah, but the virtual background is on too. I think that's what's.
No.
I have the background rendered in the Animes program, and so it's not going through a restream.
Right. Oh, okay.
You guys. Yeah. I don't know.
Well, what happens if you turn it off then? Is it just a green background?
It's just a green background. Yeah, I don't know if you.
But I still think it might go. Still think it might work a lot faster if you turn off the virtual background.
Okay, let me try.
One less positing.
Let's
see,
see.
I know how to do all this stuff if I'm going to make a movie, but I don't know how to do the real time stuff.
It's a pretty good puppet.
Yeah, I think I have to turn it off because again, my rendering, it's not allowing me to press any buttons or anything. I'm getting sounds fine.
I think Amber, you've got to try it without the virtual background because it's making a shadow around the puppet that it doesn't need to, and I think it's driving it crazy trying to figure that out.
Okay, give me a second.
Or it's making a shadow around something. Yeah, it's definitely. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's just sort of very delayed, and so it's doing both. And if it was just doing one, if it's not doing that, it would probably work quite well.
Let me try.
It's a great puppet. I thought it was an actual puppet when you first brought it on. I thought it was like a sock puppet.
No, it's just a digital puppet. But again, it's taking a while for things to click through.
I wouldn't have puppet. It comes through my window here.
It's a CGI puppet, Sasha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a 3D
when
model.
I'm looking
I'm
down at my
impressed with the
screen, you
fur.
can tell.
It's like real-time fur. That's pretty
Well,
impressive.
there we go. Is it going to be a bit better now? Maybe not. But say something.
Say something. Hello. How is that? Is that better?
It's a little better. It is a little better. It's going a little better.
Okay. Yeah. The other option that I have is
mirror shades.
It looks just like you, though. That's the thing. It's like I can't.
See, if I can also render a background. Here, let me see if I can do this. Here. Yeah, there we go. So now I have my background again.
Yeah. Oh, that's working great. That's fine. That works better. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can take off the glasses, but because I wear glasses, I thought it kind of looked like me a little bit more.
Yeah. No. That's fine.
I added the headset, and on when I've been streaming, I also give myself a microphone and a chair. And I have that green background, so you can see that green background. I can do a chroma key with it, and then it just looks like I'm in the corner as a cat.
Right. Totally.
Yeah. So So we have a couple comments, by the way. To Art Glitch, Human Hyperlink, that cat of yours almost reminds me of Meowth from Pokemon.
I love Meowth. Yes, he's my favorite character in Pokemon.
That's from Nathan French. And then Sache Harriet Nori says, "Is this cat a CGI or a Muppet?" It's CGI, and that's kind of Uncanny Valley, like the Polar Express. And so, yeah, I'll give you that. It's totally Uncanny Valley. Yeah, but again, for my work, for my day job, I had to come up with VTuber stuff because they are talking about such personal stuff. They didn't want it to affect their professional lives. And so that's why they're hiding behind this. I don't have the microphone going right now, but I can also alter my voice. And so, yeah, but the voice I came up with is a little funny, and not that this isn't funny. So.
I want to talk to MoCat. I don't want to talk to Amber. I just want to talk to MoCat.
No! Yeah. You just like MoCat?
I just like MoCat now. Amber, you're fine. MoCat's got yours.
Yeah, I guess. Well, when Dale said that he wasn't going to be here today, I'm like, but I had a surprise. I was going to be a cat. And he gives me a little thumbs up with a question mark. And he's like, okay.
Well, exactly. Yeah. Well, Dirk, I bet you never thought you were going to be interviewed by a purple cat.
I gotta say, when I woke up this morning, that was not what I was expecting.
Now, there was a popular animation that we saw in Britain. Like, it was quite hard to see, but it was called Dougal and the Blue Cat, and it was the feature-length film based on the Magic Roundabout, which again, it's not really come over here. It was a French cartoon, and it was popular. It was like little 5-minute, and it was very sort of kind of surreal. They lived in this funny little world, and the French animator was Serge Dano, and it was translated by Eric Thompson, who was actually Emma Thompson's father. And he did these little voiceovers, but he didn't know what it was supposed to say. So he just made it up. And it was quite cute, but it was all nonsense. Didn't really make any sense. But I think now they redid them with proper translations, with like Nigel Planer doing them, from one of the guys from The Young Ones. But they made a whole it wasn't really unknown, but sort of at some point in the late 80s, early 90s, it was sort of made where people became aware that there was a full-length movie of Dougal and the Blue Cat, and it became a bit of a sort of stoner classic to sort of try and locate and see this thing, which was quite a strange movie, and there are a lot of sort of weird references in it. But Dougal is very funny, and actually the big joke of Dougal, I later learned to the French, is that Dougal is English. So the sort of French are making fun. He's this sort of stupid dog, and then there's this weird character Zebedee who goes around on a spring. And they had some Magic Roundabout books that I think Eric Thompson might have written them or something. I was a kid, little stories, and I found those the funniest little stories when I was young, like reading, like first reader sort of books. Yeah, I don't know. Yes. So anyway, it looked a bit like the Blue Cat. So look at Dougal and the Blue Cat. If you want to see a weird animation classic.
In No Stereotypes, my comic that I actually had on Modern Tales, the cat was purple. And so whenever I have like a little cat character or whatever, I make it purple. And, I don't know why. It's just a continued thing.
It's purple cat.
Yeah. Well, it's like I always draw blue people.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It just makes me happy to do blue people.
And Dirk, I have to say the fact that you're like, I'm such a slow artist, but I did all this work is so inspiring because I've been doing this stuff. And it's been taking me forever. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going to take me forever. I'm going to die before I finish,
I mean, to be fair, when I'm actually drawing, I can draw pretty fast. It's just sustaining over long periods of time is difficult. And that's why comics is a challenge. Because it's like, I'll go through spurts like, okay, I'm doing comics. And I'll like rip out a bunch of stuff. And then I'm like, I'm tired of doing comics. And take a break.
I know. I really want to do my Puful epic. I've written... Pretty much, it's all written. Puful in Love, the sort of story of how Puful and Tina met. Great story I've always meant to do. Sort of noodled away on it over the years, and I think I've got it finished really over the pandemic. I mean, it's not 100%.
I want to know how he landed her. I mean,
it's all worked out. It's a great story. It's by a magnificent octopus. It's going to be really good, and I'm when I'm going to sit down and draw it.
I love that magnificent octopus.
Yeah, I'm going to have to use that.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
I think that's from Blackadder or something. Baldrick's sort of Blackadder's written his Magnus Octopus, then Baldrick's done his magnificent octopus.
Well, I think the trick with comics is to just plug away.
Oh, of course it is.
Yes.
Keep keep plugging and keep plugging. And
right, it's
get started. Andrew said that's what Andrew Froggy said. You got to start it. That's the first thing.
I know after NPAD, I was burnt out on comics. I know that, because
that's why
I
seem to go back to it every few years, and
I get angry. I get angry thinking about comics and like, oh, I don't want to do this, but I do want to do this. I got a degree doing this. I don't want to do this, and yeah.
I think that Charles Schultz said it best. Comics, kid, they'll break your heart.
Yeah.
They'll destroy you.
Yeah, don't try and do anything. Like my motto is never ever bloody anything ever.
Except when I'm solely inspired, and then I do it.
I'll give it a prize to anyone who can tell me where that one comes from.
That San Diego Comic-Con that we first met and stuff. Did you go to John Barber's lecture about the page turn and about language of comics in panels?
Yes.
Yeah, him and Neil Cohn were talking and stuff like that. I got to meet Will Eisner, who also went to that talk.
Oh wow!
Right afterwards, and so there was like John Barber and Alexander Danner was there, and like I said, it was like Aaron Zolan. It was a few other people that were all kind of gathered around.
Yeah.
And Will Eisner wanted to talk to John and wanted to talk to Neil and everybody afterwards about comic theory. And so he came up to them and, me, I'm like, wow, that's so awesome, John. This is cool. And then Will Eisner walks up and he's like, oh, I want to introduce myself. And he's introducing himself to John Barber. And it's like, dude, you don't need to introduce yourself.
We know who you
Eisner. And I just,
oh my God.
Yeah, I just remember like geeking out and just being like, man, without you, none of us would be here. Right. And he looked around and he said, oh, I never thought of it that way. And
wow.
he just that's the only response he really had to me aside from like, oh, it's nice to meet you and stuff. But that's the only thing that I could think of is without him, none of us would have been there.
Yes. Yes, that his book, like that was it Understanding? No, that's what I'm getting mixed up with Scott McCloud. But that his first one of like
sequential
comics and sequential art. Yeah, I still have it. That one I read it through and through over and over. And when we were at that Comic-Con, I got on the bus to go back like late at night after thing, and he got on the bus, and I was like, wow. There weren't many people on the bus. I didn't really talk to him, but he was sort of sitting on the bus there with his wife, and I was like, "Wow, I'm sitting on the bus here with Will Eisner." I really thought like that was amazing.
Yeah, the year he died, everybody, had kind of their.
I think I lent it to somebody.
It's sort of a book you want to give to people, isn't it? Yeah.
But the year he died, I remember everybody was sharing their stories at the Eisner Awards, right? And they set up that big chair, but he wasn't sitting in it because, again, it was the year that he passed away and everything. And so everyone's, sharing like the first time they met him or the first time they read something from Eisner. And what I thought was cool, and we're talking about AI and stuff, is that Eisner, I guess, was one of the first in comics who made a type, like he made actual blocks of his handwriting, right? So that he could actually have it print typed of his own handwriting. So think like how Blambot has fonts of people's handwriting now. Like you could buy the Scott, J. Scott Campbell like font, and then you have his handwriting and stuff.
Yep.
So
I think he's been doing that from the get-go, making.
Yeah, he had that made in lead block.
I made a font out of mine.
Did you?
Paradigm Shift.
Oh, okay. It's
lowercase, but the other one's sort of cobbled together from other stuff. But
okay,
I made my own font.
That's a
my
font.
Own font. I made that own font.
So if I can focus on that.
Yeah, that's cool.
In '98.
Well, I just thought it was cool that like Eisner did it in lead blocks. Right. Wow. And he carved it himself. So he like drew out like 6 different E's, and then he was the one that came up with the idea of having like, if you're gonna make a font of your handwriting, you want to have varied E's and A's and L's and stuff like that. So
you wanted to randomize the characters. You want like sort of 3 versions of each or something and randomize them. Yeah.
Blambot and font makers today, like DaFont and stuff, still implement that basically his setups, right? And how he was like, okay, you need X amount of A's and X amount of D's and stuff like that. They still use his number charts, and they don't even realize it's Will Eisner that came up with them.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah,
He's the Les Paul of comics.
Will Eisner was one of those guys that like no one paid attention to at the time he was doing this stuff.
Yeah.
And it was really, I feel like towards the end of his life that people were finally going, wow, this guy really thought through a lot of this. And I mean, it's been argued that Understanding Comics basically took Will's 3 books and parsed them down into a comic.
Yeah.
You know, and so I know that when Understanding Comics first came out, that was a comment and a critique of it, is that you basically just took Eisner's ideas and parsed them down. But Making Comics, he expanded upon those ideas and definitely include a lot more of them. But, but he definitely had his I don't know. I'm going to stop there.
We've got a comment here, Amber. Sorry, I don't have my glasses. I can't read it.
Okay. It says, I love this off of Facebook. And then this big long one says, it's really a great webcomic when I discovered it. I was still in college because I'm a fan of webcomics. Each day I try to discover at least 5 new webcomics, and I saw yours. I really appreciated the details and the notes you were used to write under used to write under the pages to explain your realistic approach. Thought I'm a little sad they're not in the new version. It's very rare to see a webcomic turning into animation.
Thank you. All those notes that I had in the webcomic, they're actually all footnotes in the back of the book now.
Okay.
So they're aware. Are they at the back of book 2?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there's footnotes in both books.
Do you have like the little star and a number?
No, you just have to refer back to. If you have the ebook version, though, you can click on the panel and it'll go to the footnote, and then you can click on the
ebooks. I like paper.
I know, but I do too. I printed books, didn't I?
Yeah.
But I didn't have room to put stars in every single page and every single.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
No. You have to do the hard work yourself.
Alan Moore says this is a superior product, superior technology to the digital, because this won't disappear when all the lights go out.
Exactly. Yes. I agree. Well, and I have many copies, so they're going to last.
Yeah. Well, yes. Well, welcome to the world of independent publishing. Yes.
Exactly.
It's part of the job. I remember going to a seminar fairly early on, which Keith Knight was presenting with a guy named Attaboy, who was oh my god, High Fructose magazine. He started, which is quite worth following. Very sort of out there art. But they said, if you're going to get into this business of making your own stuff and self-publishing, expect to have a large numbers of boxes.
I got a storage space.
It's one of the reasons why I am happy to work with the print-on-demand services at Amazon.
Right.
And so, it's on Amazon. I can give people an Amazon link.
Yeah.
I do not have piles of books in my house.
Yes, that's a good way. And then you can keep it minimal and you can just keep around enough so that you've got some on hand.
Pages at the beginning, though.
I realize that. Yeah. Yes. I know.
Yeah, you can't do stuff like that without proper printing and proper printing. So it just depends. Dirk's in it for the long term. We know you're not a short-termer, Dirk.
They'll eventually go away. I mean, I still have a few copies left of the first edition. Not first edition, because I sold out of the first edition a long time ago. But the first edition of book 3, I still have a number of copies of those. But they eventually go away, and my original plan when I did the Kickstarter was I was going to go back to conventions and do a few shows, and then COVID hit, and I haven't really done any conventions. I'm just starting to kind of piece my way back in.
Come to Denver. We have Fan Expo here.
Oh, that's
cool.
And
it used to be a Comic-Con, but when Comic-Con started suing everybody for using Comic-Con, it became Fan Expo. And so it's just it's an interesting convention. There's because it's Denver, you get all the people from like Kansas and Oklahoma and Montana and Texas. And so you get all of these people that are like, man, I drove 700 miles to be here to see you.
That's dedication, man.
Yeah, it's like, really? Like someone in the middle of Oklahoma reads my comic?
Great. I know I'm going to come back to it So it's at first I was sort of like, oh, I can't really go back until I have issue 1 of the new thing. But now I'm sort of like, I'm gonna make movies. So I'll just have movies.
I'm just going to say it again for anybody, I don't know how well you can see this on the camera, but this is a really
Why don't
great
you put it on your desk
instruction manual.
Put it on your desk
well, if I have it on the table, it's really glossy and reflects. So it's on beautiful glossy paper. But yes, I mean, just you've really condensed down the information here on how to draw. It's really very handy. It goes very detailed on your characters, but then just the stuff in the back.
Yeah, like
about
that whole
the character
section.
and the figure and all this sort of stuff. I mean, I think that's,
like that was sort of a condensed version of the workshop.
Inking, you got your whole process broken down here. So
yeah. It's an amazing process because I remember, I don't know about when you finished up through volume 2, up through the second story. But
yeah, that was sort of like end of 2018, I think, is when I
but even though you call yourself slow, you were still consistent with pages updating.
Well, that's because I had a huge backlog. I didn't start posting it until I could kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel on that. So
okay, well,
it's
I didn't
really
know that.
At this point it's editing that is my slow spot. I get serious writer's block when I've got the whole first draft of the new story written. And what cratered me on issue 1 was I was like, I need a B story here. Like the emotional arc is not here. There's a lot of really cool stuff that happens, but the emotional arc is not here, and I gotta figure that out before I do issue 1. Like before, because I have to put.
Just don't make them fall in love. Don't fall on that trope.
Too late. They were gonna fall in love anyway.
I know, but it's like we knew that anyway. But it's like,
well, but how and how does it turn out? And there's all sorts of. It does not. It does.
Should eat him. That's how it should turn out.
That's true love.
Yes, she should eat him and then wake
Martian
up and realize
style.
she ate him and go,
Eat
no.
your friends.
Yeah, I do like Amber's idea there, but I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I've been thinking about, well, you say, because I'm thinking about Pupil in Love, and I was thinking about that and like love. Well, I mean, I'm writing it as a love story. I'm writing it as a romantic comedy. I mean, it's like an epic fantasy romantic comedy, and I'm trying to follow like a 4-act structure and really, or sort of,
comment.
4-act structure.
Don't worry, you still update quicker than Berserk, in my opinion. On that note, okay, talking about updates and stuff, we have new translated cuneiform tablets from Edisnir. Yes, it's Edisnir. And he's reassuring someone who bought copper ingots from him. No, don't worry, it'll totally work out. Follow my guys. I've already sent money to this dude.
Wait, I have no idea what she's talking about now. What are you talking about?
Edisnir is in ancient Mesopotamia. There is a complaint letter written in cuneiform.
Okay, yes, yes, all right.
Quality of copper ingots from this guy, and and the person basically complaining like, Edisnir, your stuff is crap, and I don't want to buy it, and how dare you say that this is quality when it's not quality and stuff like that. Well, they just recently translated this new set of tablets that's more like tablets about this guy, about this exchange back and forth of him totally reassuring people, oh no, the ingots are great.
Well, okay, then now I'm wondering, like, they found more, is it maybe more of a sort of, but if they found more of them, I mean, are they really just a letter from one guy to another, or is it more of a sort of a public story or something like that?
No,
I thought this was like
in those days,
webcomic parody.
They used clay tablets as their communication, and so they had basically like a stick with like a wedge in it, and so they would wedge in the different shapes for their writing across.
Yes, they have their little wedgy shapes.
The messenger, and the messenger would take it back and forth, and because it was a clay tablet, it would stay there so that they could read it and then put it down or whatever. The reason why we have so many of them is these were unfired tablets, but when Alexander the Great burned Ur to the ground, they got fired. And so we have all these tablets because they hardened because of the fire. Yeah, so it's really cool. I'll find it for you. Ed is near.
So these ones were found in the same place. So this guy kept his records of all the letters that people were sending him about how crap his products were.
Yeah.
Well, my products are quality. Yes. I had them printed in Korea. They know their shit.
I've got a stack of clay tablets back there complaining about my.
When are you going to update again?
Okay, yes, I'm a bit quiet. Okay, I'm about to start on my big project. So I've got my Earth Space projects coming up. I'm having a book launch party in September. I was going to ask you about Kickstarter. That's what we didn't ask. So what are your top Kickstarter tips?
Well, do a comic for 20 years. That helps.
Like, how did you plan and prepare for your Kickstarters? Because you did that big one.
Yeah, the Kickstarter was like, it blew my mind how well that worked. Because I'd finished what became Volume 2 in 2018, and I wanted to print it. But I wasn't sure exactly how I was going to go about that. But I remembered that when I had done Book 3, Emergence, back in 2010, I was able to, before there was crowdsourcing, I was able to like take pre-orders and pay for that print run just by taking pre-orders before Kickstarter.
Well, yes, so I'm wondering if it's better to do that, because I could set them up for pre-orders on Amazon, and so then I don't go through the rigmarole of a Kickstarter.
Yeah, so there's that. I mean, there's stuff, there's Kickstarter, there's Crowdfunder, there's BackerKit now, there's Indiegogo, there's all these. But what I did for this one was I had pretty much everything more or less ready to go ahead of time, because I got the book done, and it was that part was done. So I needed to make all the I made the videos. I had to price out how much I needed. That was I had to find the printer, get some quotes, and then I had to run some numbers and figure out, okay, how many people do I need, and how much could I assume that the average person might give? And I ran the numbers and realized, okay, well, if I sell this collection for $50, a $50 tier for the 2 books, plus an ebook, how many? If I get 100 people, I have $5,000. That's enough to cover 3/4 of the print run. Yes. I know 100 people.
Yes. I couldn't remember. So it was $50, or was that more because I got the art book? I can't really remember. It was just the first 2 books. The art book ended up being a stretch goal. Yes. Okay. The art book was a stretch goal.
But my initial idea was I'm going to set the goal a little lower than what I actually need, because I had some savings set aside because I was teaching at the time. So I had a small gig that was bringing in a little bit of money on a regular basis. So I had.
So you set a modest goal.
So I set a modest goal, less than I actually needed, but enough that I knew that I could actually pay for everything. And then ahead of time, I emailed a bunch of people I knew, such as you and Shannon and a number of people I knew through other channels. That were not necessarily comics. I was taking a coaching class at the time, so I talked to the students in the class, and and even my instructors, said, okay, yeah, we'll be happy to post a link to the Kickstarter on the day of. And so then I gave them some sample little blurb and access to some graphics. Just if you want to use a graphic, here you go. And then on the day of, the night before, I emailed everybody and said, hey, tomorrow's the big day. Yeah. And so the morning of, when it launched, people who had agreed to be part of my little launch team all posted on their socials. And the next thing I knew, it was taken off. And I couldn't believe it funded in 36 hours, which was just nuts. And
then did you think, I should have set a larger goal, but you had stretch goals ready?
And then I had the stretch goals set up. I knew I wanted to do an art book. I think I put that at 10K, because I knew I'd have to print a whole nother book. So, and it ended up being between the art book, which I kind of, I made it a little more deluxe than maybe my original plans were. So I was really just gonna originally just kind of print the sketchbooks, and the tutorials were a part of like a little mini I'd made, based on all the workshops that I'd been doing. And but I wanted to combine them all together into a single thing instead of printing minis all the time. Cause
I think it's great. Yeah.
But between that and then the international shipping, I ended up breaking even on the whole project, even though I made a bunch of money. But it was, to me, worthwhile because like the whole point of it was to do the work.
Well, not only that, but the quality of the book itself was, pretty good. Like, I remember in the early days of webcomics, the early print-on-demand stuff was iffy. Right?
Yeah.
Like I don't know if you had bought the first printing of the Sluggy Freelance books.
Oh.
Yeah, Sluggy Freelance. He was always like sort of pushing into all these things quite early. I remember.
He basically. I would imagine him as the guy with the pickaxe who's digging through the mountain, the path that everyone else followed.
Yes, he's already he always been there first.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he roughed it out. He roughed it out, and other people kind of widened the path, made it smoother.
Yeah, totally.
They built bridges where before you'd have to go down and up certain things. Technology changed. Now there's a train going through the pass.
Right.
But
and if you think about what we did as web,
meanwhile everyone else is walking in there, and what are all those web cartoons
for what the YouTubers are doing now, and the influencers and all that, including the burnout and including the
yes,
we definitely were like, we know what it's like to be a content creator.
Well, yes. So
enjoy making your content
creator.
It is burnout is the real problem for artists.
Yeah,
and you know what? And then there was a meme going around of some British guy from the 50s saying, artists should be allowed to have bad periods and make mistakes. You have to, you just got to keep at it. You got to be experimenting. You have to be allowed to fail. You have to allow yourself to fail. And actually, most of the time when you fail, you haven't really failed as bad as you thought after a bit of time, and then your failure actually helps you build your next success.
Right. But, well, in this case, like, this whole movie came out of me kind of crashing and burning with the first issue of the next story. It was sort of, the whole thing's roughed. I started drawing it and realized, like, I need to edit this thing. And then I was like, at the same time, I was thinking, maybe I would pitch this thing to Image. And I started, like, trying to do rewrites, and I just crashed and burned. And there was, like, about 2 weeks there where I was
Image
like,
would pick you up in a second, dude. Image would pick
I know they would, but I wanted to have the story, like I wanted to have the rewrite, like of the story, the outline. I wanted to have a rewrite of the outline with that B plot, where I was happy with it, before I submitted it. Even though I know I could change it, but it was like I wanted to do it, but I got stuck. I got so writer's blocked, and so. And this was like right around the time that the Ukraine invasion happened. And I was just realizing, I'm depressed. I think I need to stop. And so I stopped. And I let myself like play video games for like 2 weeks.
Good for you.
And I was like playing Dyson Sphere Program. Which you make a Dyson Sphere. It's one of these like factory building games. But I was sitting there like building all these like robotic bases and things. And I was like, I'm playing with Legos. I'm making things, and then it occurred to me I could play Legos and build my own stuff. And that's when I pulled out Blender and started Blender.
Well, you have to follow your heart there.
I'm working on a Kate model, and she can transform, and I'm like, oh wait. And then the next thing you know, I had like a fully usable rig, like within 2 months. Like of starting, I had a fully usable rig, and I was like, I got to do something with this thing. And so
it's a good use of your time.
Then I started what became the short film in
July.
I
think like people like a film.
That period of like, this isn't working. I need a break, and I need to do something different. And I'd always wanted to play with this animation stuff, and then I let myself do it. I let myself play, but I also had to do it out of the public eye. I absolutely had to do it.
Yeah, you kind of came out of nowhere, like blossomed with, by the way, here's Kate animations, and oh, here's a trailer, and it's like you were this close little bud, and then out of nowhere, it's like, look at all this stuff that I've been making inside.
Yeah, but that's how it works.
But it's often like that. Yes,
I have to work in the outside of the public eye sometimes to really, which is why I found webcomics to be kind of difficult, because you kind of have to be engaging the whole time, and especially with a longer project. Like, part of the reason I was looking at maybe submitting the image would be so I could release it as issues.
Yeah.
And bring it out on a regular basis, and so the time to print and publish would be shorter than having to do it, because I was like, if I waited till the end of this book or 2 books, even if it was 2 books, like, it's gonna be 4 or 5 years in between books.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if I could release a few issues a year maybe. And that might yet happen, but I gotta see where the animation stuff goes first before I come back to that.
Well, I'm surprised that no one's approached you about making a video game with Paradigm
Which I'd love
yet.
to do, but apparently I don't have the right connections. Because no one has asked. I mean, that would be awesome. I would love to have a video game.
Well, I mean, would you do it as like a, I don't know what you would do.
I'll tell you,
detective games are tough to do.
They are. So I would do sort of something that would be a little more action role play, I think. Like, if I were to use an exemplar, it would be like the newer Tomb Raider games. Something where there would be a story and you'd be investigating and doing that, but there would be plenty of action. And I mean, I envisioned a long time ago involving like a branching plot line, but that's a pain in the ass.
From Flozax, it says, this is almost exactly why I've decided to do my comic in full issues rather than page-a-week web comics. I just create better in large chunks than having to meet the social media expectations of that schedule.
Yes, this is true, but I will also say that forcing yourself to have that deadline gets you to do it, and it's we're running quite long today.
Yeah, we are running long. My child is running around in the street.
Yes.
I have to go get her.
All right, well, time to say goodbye probably, but I'm going to say that giving yourself some sort of a deadline and sticking to it. It forces you to get the work done and finish it, even if it's not of the quality you might want. Bye, Am. Thanks, Amber.
It works sometimes for me, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it becomes a bludgeon in which I hit myself with, and then I get depressed and it doesn't work. So I have to be careful.
Yes. You have to. You've got to think about these things as an artist, and they're all there. I mean, there's a point where, when you're young and hungry, you'll sort of put the time in. I've sort of forced myself with people. I'm like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm going to do it. I sort of know what I want to do, and I think the only way to get good at it is to actually do it. If I say I'm going to do it every day, then I have to do it. And okay, if you miss a day, it's not the end of the world, but but then you miss a day, then you miss another day, and then you don't do it. And
in between thing, because there would be a deadline, it'd just be a longer term deadline instead of a daily deadline.
Yes.
My problem is not working every day, because I work every day. I mean, I'm putting in like 10, 12, sometimes 18-hour days doing this animation because it's just so much fun. It's kind of all I want to do. But also I can't do that day in and day out forever. I'll finish the film and then I'll probably take a break and do some more animation because it's fun. Like, it's a different thing than with comics. When I'm in the middle of a thing, I'm going in every day. I'm in the studio. That's how it is. My problem is when I'm in the writing mode, I can write every day. I don't know whether or not I'm productive every day when I'm in the writing mode. So, still do the work. It's just...
Yes, I switch myself from different phases.
Editing is different than producing script or...
You sort of switch hats a lot if you're sort of doing it in the independent way, and now I'm in the mode where I'm a writer, now I'm in the mode where I'm an artist, now I'm in the mode where I'm an inker or a painter, or now I'm a sort of social media guy, and there are a lot of different hats. So or you sell out and you join a corporation and now you just do this every day.
So what I've been doing is, if I can show it, if it'll actually
sure, please.
if I can show. Come on, work with me. It doesn't consider it anything. I can turn off my virtual background.
The thing.
Yeah, I got to turn off my virtual background.
I was like, oh wow, your background.
No.
So yes, there we are.
What this is it's an accomplishment journal.
Right.
And so rather than planning out what I've been doing, is I actually write down what I've done.
Yeah,
right.
I've done that. I've done that too.
I've been blocking out, like, okay, this is going to be drawing time. This is going to be research time. This is going to be reading time, right? And I find that with the accomplishment journal, because it's little goals, like I'm nipping away at stuff, it allows me to see the accumulation of all those things rather than feel like I'm spinning in circles. I realize I'm going up a staircase rather than spinning in circles.
Right.
Yeah, no, you see your progress.
I was doing all that while I was trying very desperately to rewrite the story, and I've got many spiral bound notebooks filled with stuff like that that I have done zero of since I started the film. None. Yes. I've not been journaling. I've not been doing any like calendar or to-do list daily, weekly, which I was all over before, especially when I was teaching. I had to like write up like, okay, today I'm teaching on Tuesday and Thursday, and I got to like do my schedule. I had all these very, I had a whole system. It was great. Since I've been working on the film, nothing. Just sit down and animate. That's it.
Well, okay, I'm going to get a little philosophical here because you were talking about spirals, and I had this idea about the spiraling, the vortex nature of existence. We're all like really living in Dorothy's house in the tornado. We had the Wizard of Oz earlier, and things are all really moving around. Everything around me, it looks like it's sitting there, but it's not. It's moving around in space. We're all spinning in this sort of vortex, yin yang donut, spiraling sine wave sort of thing. I'm thinking about that, but then I realised there's another force at work. There's the grid, which we impose on the vortex, and the grid, you line out like the calendar is your grid. And yes, and that the grid is sort of powered by the vortex. So the vortex powers the grid, and it uses the power of the vortex, but the vortex sort of destroys the grid. And these are the forces of sort of like your body is like a grid of cells. So, they somehow get together. So it's something to do with, like, I'm not sure if the grid, like atoms and like probably rocks and things, and the grid or the vortex, but yeah, they're two things. They're spinning around, but. Yeah, so I don't know about these forces, but it's something to do with that. And in a comic we break it into the grid. We sort of the grid is harnessing the spiral of all these things.
Flozak says it does feel good to just create every day and see what you can get done. Twitch streams keep me honest and working on comics despite having a day job as well. That's how I feel. Is doing the Twitch streams. It kind of obligates me to the stream, and it's like, okay, I have to draw during this time, so I'm not just surfing the internet.
Right.
Yes.
That isn't really my issue at the moment.
You're very lucky to get to a point where you can not do, not have to do something as a day job.
Yes.
Yeah. More of the obligation part. That's one of those things that will fuel my burnouts. When I've crashed and burned, is that feeling of obligation. That is not good fuel for my system. That's bad fuel for my system.
That's interesting because
I have
for
to
me,
be
I
creating
feel
from
like
a place of love, not from a place of obligation. Because when I do, it is powerful fuel, but it burns out my engine, and it's not good for me.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, you did have quite a bad burnout. I seem to remember.
Yeah, I've experienced that.
Yes. Well, talk about your burnout. What happened?
Well, I mean, I was trying. So, 2012, I was writing a really very powerful wave. My comic had really. I'd printed 3 books at that point. I was starting to become a guest at various, especially anime shows. And I was traveling all the country. I was doing something like 18 comic shows a year. Like, it was my full-time job. And the summer of 2012, I had just gotten back from Otakon, which was like, one of the craziest shows in the country. I don't know if it still is, but I imagine it still is. And I noticed while I was there that my wrist hurt. And I couldn't understand it. I was like, signing books and doing stuff. And I came back and and it wouldn't go away. And it was kept still hurting. And when I sat down to draw, it got worse.
Yeah.
RSI,
like, yes.
Oh, this is not...
Yes, it's very difficult, yes.
Right,
I mean, we had a really deep conversation about this back then, and I think you will still find that show.
I went off to the doctor, and they diagnosed I had a pinched nerve in my neck, and it was causing referred pain all down my arm. And at the same time, I was like, but I have this webcomic, and people want me to update it. And
now you're sort of stuck in that spiral, yes.
Written, I'd written a good chunk of the book at that point. I was about halfway through, I think, volume 2. And I ended up having to stop for like several months and go on PT, and it sort of worked. And then I spent all of 2013 sort of half in pain and struggling and fighting and trying. And also, on top of that, picking up a all ages story to work on with somebody else, which was a cute story. It turned out really great once I actually finished it. But at the end of 2013, like it was like October, and it all came back. It all came back with a vengeance. And I was just like, I'm sorry, guys, I got to stop. And I just sort of like quit the internet because I just couldn't. And long story short, to fast forward, it turns out that the repetitive stress injury was not a problem with my posture, although that didn't help. It wasn't a problem with whether I was exercising or not, because I started yoga and doing all this stuff. Turns out it's anxiety and depression. It was all and
that's a major factor in it. You know, I think anytime you get sick, there usually
we got to wrap up. I got to get off, or we got to wrap up. One of the two.
So
all right. Well, I just going to say that when you get sick, there are usually three contributing factors. You know, it's like a perfect storm thing. Like your body can handle like a virus or whatever, but if you're wiped out or you're stressed, you know, those are major factors that will contribute to you getting sick.
Yeah, absolutely. It was the mind and the body are connected. They're not two separate things. They're all mixed together. So
yes.
And the way I was treating myself around webcomics was the problem. And the way I was interacting with my readers was a problem. And I had to learn to love comics again. And it took like 2 or 3 years before it took me 2 solid years before I came back to working on what became Volume 2.
But that was good. And you played your fiddle and you did different things.
Again. I learned to paint. I did a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And I finished the book. I did a Kickstarter. And now I'm on films. I mean,
yes.
And now I'm much more aware of the shit that's going on in my own brain. Does that mean it goes away? Not necessarily, but the turnaround time is a little faster now.
Amber's got to go. Amber, cheerio, Amber. Thanks so much. Like Dirk and I will just say we'll carry on a minute if you have to.
All right, no worries, no worries. I will. I'm still kind of here. Bye.
Okay,
bye.
Yeah, Amber's a good mom. She's got to do what she's got to do. Yes, I mean it's very difficult, and I mean part of the show is talking to young artists and things, and I think it's a struggle. Well, a lot of artists have been through. There's an artist here recently who was talking to. I went through it quite early on in my late 20s. When I was sort of over here and I was sort of living over here and I sort of started working, I was sort of freelance doing like desktop publishing stuff and going around different places. And it was funny, there was one particular place I went and it's funny, they said everybody there always got sick and there was something, maybe the feng shui or something. And I don't know, but I think that may be a factor, all sorts of things. But something was a factor and suddenly like I couldn't move my wrist, I couldn't lift anything, couldn't open a door, I didn't know what to do and there were no sort of solutions around. And
right.
Eventually, I found, this was the late 90s, there was a store downtown in San Francisco called the Back Store. And they had a book called Repetitive Strain Injury. They said like one copy of it, Repetitive Strain Injury for Computer Users. And I thought, well, it was the only thing I could find. So I thought, I'll take it. They were like, oh, okay, that's okay. But it was really, really helpful. It was written by this guy, Dr. Emil Pasquinelli.
Yeah.
Been updated over the years, but he sort of taught, well, first of all, he said, be very careful about sort of surgical options. And I've had surgeries because of my disability. And, surgery can be very helpful, but surgeons know so much. You go see a surgeon, they want to do surgery. And for this is an injury that occurs slowly over time, doing it. And different factors contribute to it. One of them is stress. So, stress relaxing exercises, good stretching routine. The book he had very good. One of the key things he said was like you push on your palm, but not the fingers when you're sort of doing things like this. You know, that was sort of super helpful.
I have some yoga versions of these, but
yes, so these, but yes, he was quite big on the palm, not the fingers for some reason. Anyway, and like going into a corner, for example, and sort of pushing out. I can't see what I'm doing with my arms, like just sort of things like that, your shoulders, and just realizing, you know, and thinking, and all this sort of basic posture stuff. You know, it's like health is important, but also he had sort of mindfulness exercises. You know, he said be patient. You know, take your time. You know, do something else, because it's a repetitive motion. It's soft tissue damage that takes time, and it will slowly heal up. And if you follow good practices, it do. I always had to be aware. One thing I did at the time is I learned to use my mouse with the left hand. You know, which was because I'm like, oh, my right hand is drawing. You know, I'd be going and doing this job during the day and coming home and drawing at night. You know, that's always what I did for years and years and years. And you know, and then you're sort of stressed and you're thinking about finance and all this and whatever, and you know, it all comes. So you've got to step back, take a breath, you know, look after number one, and don't worry about it, because you know, when you step away, like the reason you got stressed is because you're doing the wrong thing. You know, you're not really happy.
Exactly.
You know, to be happy, you have to step away.
Yeah. Exactly. That's the thing was, I mean, and that's what the long and short of it is. I realized that doing webcomics doesn't make me happy. Doing the story makes me happy. Working on my story makes me happy. But the grind of trying to keep an update schedule, it does not make me happy. So
I agree with that.
Does not make me happy. So that's why when I finished the mindset change that was required for me was to think of the second story as a book and finish it as a book. And then I started publishing it online as sort of an experiment, but I was also publishing it in issue form at local shows. So I would finish up an issue and turn it up. But I didn't start updating it online until I was very near the end of finishing that up. And then I reran the whole thing after I got the new website up, just to sort of, you know, hopefully maybe find a few new readers. Of course, I gave them the wrong impression that it was going to be a webcomic that updated forever in perpetuity, and then I ran out. But
well,
no, there are finite webcomics. Demonology 101 by Faith Erin Hicks. That was her first one, right?
Yeah.
She's completed 4 or 5 different webcomics that are finite, beginning, middle, and end stories.
Yep. And I deliberately ended volume 2. It's clear that it's not the end of the series, but it definitely has an ending. You know, they can live there at that cabin for a while before the new story starts. It's like I deliberately gave it a stopping point.
they can live at the cabin for a while.
It thematically ends. That story ends even if the character's bigger story is not over. So I had to like deliberately do that while I was working on it to like make sure I knew that there would be an end goal. And so then when I reached it, I knew I could stop. And you know, in all there, that's when I wrote a completely different graphic novel and tried to sell it and did other things. So there was
the Mars one.
More going on. Yeah, it's the Mars story. I
was thinking about that. I mean, I think like it sounded good. I mean, it's probably more like about timing. I mean, people really want the stories about, you know, with a lot of sort of social justice and all this sort of stuff. So, you know, I think probably if you just pitched it more in that angle, I'm sure it would.
Well, I mean, I'd like to think so, but I also would.
Well, besides Image, you know, there's also Dark Horse that takes created owned works. I mean, I don't know about Oni and
Iron Circus is actually high on my list too.
Iron Circus, yeah. I mean, Spike is always looking at new comics, and it's not like
not to mention that we have history, but
but
also like it's a webcomic.
Yeah, I don't think Spike even knows who I am. Right. Honestly,
Spike's actually. I when I was last, I went to Comic Con's SE in 20. Wait, it was before that. It was 2019 when it was still proper Comic Con, and you know she was doing a panel there, and Jim Subkovich on a panel. I went and I sort of spoke to them. Hi, they seem to remember me perfectly well and were like really nice and friendly. So you know, and remembered all those times. So yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I really remember her sitting at Donna Barr's booth and then getting heat exhaustion because she dressed for Chicago and not for San Diego.
Right.
And so, and I know that you two were tight from being both Chicago cartoonists.
Right.
At the time. And so I remember that as well. And she had to go back to the hotel room because she didn't feel well, and she had to change out her pants for a skirt or shorts or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that's the only really connection I have with her is going, you know, hey, do you need help? Are you okay? And like I said, I doubt she even remembers who I am. She's made such a success of my life. I'm so proud of her. Like I had something to do with it.
It blows me away.
Yes, you and her are quite similar in a lot of ways. I think you're both quite energetic. I remember her from Comic-Con
I am a dark
too.
mirror. I am a dark mirror of
you're like the dark,
success.
Your energy's not quite as well directed. Yeah, she's got put it in the right thing. I don't know what she's done. Yeah, she always seems to know what she's doing. I'm always like, oh, you know, with her temple at Arizona, I was like, okay, you know, that's very clear. You seem to know what you're doing with that, and you know.
Well, and also her personal art has also been stellar. Like it's not just her eye as an editor and, you know, fighting her ass off for making sure that, you know, comics are printed right, that that her artists aren't screwed over by publishers and stuff like that, because they were working with other printers before they're working with the printer now, and I guess they had like bad experience, and Spike flew to China and was like, no.
Wow.
You know, Spike is she is definitely someone you want on her side, on your side, absolutely. And in your corner.
Oh yeah,
she's very energetic and fearless. I think, you know, and positive spirited, a positive thinker, and a happy sort of person. You know?
Well, and also she doesn't take anyone's bullshit.
Oh my god, she's so good at that.
And because she's always been kind of at the forefront of not just comics but technology, like with Twitter, and she was an early adopter of Clip Studio Paint. And using their 3D tools to help out her own art.
Oh yeah, she was super techie. I remember even back then she would like, oh, I don't watch television. Me and my husband sit there on our laptops facing each other, and we just saw internet every evening.
And she, you know, and if you
she's
follow
the most internet online all the time person that I've ever known.
And she knew everything about the internet
good
back
at
then. And that was early days.
Her Google food must be amazing. And so she's always at the forefront of things. And so, you know, there's other people that have done things that Iron Circus did 3 or 4 years ago, right? And they're like, man, I've done this, and look at this great thing. But Iron Circus is like, yeah, beat you to it. Okay, we're already on this. By the way, we're making animations now. You know, so I fully anticipate a company like Image Comics jumping into animation within a few years, because Iron Circus always beats them to it. You know,
but who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. That's just me singing the praise.
Yeah, I mean, I'm. It just blows me away. Like, I can't believe that we used to share tables at Comic-Con.
I mean, she had one of the first like $1 million Kickstarters.
I know.
Yeah.
Just like.
She was right there, wasn't she? Yes. I mean, there was one year we had a Modern Tales table, and and then she was
2003 San Diego when we had the Girl-O-Matic and the Modern Tales table and the small press section. Yeah, that was when I first met Spike.
Yeah, and we were all hanging out together, and it was good times. Yeah,
that was. And they were like, "You're in Chicago."
She was so young then. Oh my god.
We need to hang out.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think she's still in Chicago.
Oh yeah,
still absolutely. Part of her identity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but you know, it's someone you definitely want on your side. And
we should try and get her on one day. That would be lovely. Yeah,
we can try.
She's a busy lady.
I think she's a bit busy.
She's doing interviews with Forbes. Okay, like
I know.
I don't know if she'd be like, "Wow, these little webcomickers are doing a show now."
You guys are still
jump
doing
on that.
Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if she did. She's like, she's a good person. To be honest, yes, but yes. Well, we're working up to it. I have a joke. When I first did my original one, I was always like, I compared it to like. Apocalypse Now. I was going down the river, and I sort of envisioned Scott Kurtz as like Colonel Kurtz. He was the guy that one day I was going to I would interview him. He was my great white whale. It would have actually. I had it all lined up at one point, and then it fell through because of me. I had a family commitment. I couldn't get out of it, and it was ridiculous. But one day we'll have a nice chat with him. He's a lovely guy. Whenever I've met with him, one day we'll get these big.
Yes,
the big
things to
wigs.
look forward
But
to.
right now we got Dirk.
Yeah.
Dirk, I consider a pretty impressive guest. That's good.
Well, thank
Dirk,
you. Thank
Dirk,
you.
Tina
I like to
likes
think
a
I
good
punched
guest.
above
So.
my weight, but you know.
Well,
I don't think so. I think you're punching
fair-
extremely well. Yes.
to be fair, not all of us have as much time and freedom as you do.
Right,
And
exactly.
So you should take it
Well-
and use it and appreciate it and be creative for the rest of us.
I'm gonna make
And-
some movies.
Yeah,
Actually,
make some
is
movies.
it? Yeah, all right. Dirk's lucky; his wife's making good money. But you can live quite humbly as an artist. If you don't have too many commitments.
Well,
if you want to start having lots of kids and things, well, then you have to talk to Travis Hansen. He's got tons of kids and grandkids, and they all rope it in. He makes them. So he's the example of how you really make it work, I guess.
As opposed to, I mean, we're doing well now, but
Yes.
we're in a good shape now because we were wise with what we had.
Yes. You need to be wise and make a choice. I'm spending my
You
time.
had to have the opportunity in the first place to even be able to make that choice. So
Yeah, well,
I
yes,
understand
some
that
privilege.
coming
Yes,
from-
art mostly.
Fortune smiles on
it's
different people
yeah.
in different ways. Okay,
Mhm.
and you shouldn't feel bad or feel embarrassed or anything because
Yeah.
you're in a better situation than others because you made good decisions, right? You should actually have a kind of feel moment about that, and also it's the random number generation of life, right? You have no idea what's going to happen.
Yep.
So you just happen to be in a
Determinants.
good position to make your little animations and make awesome stuff out of it, and you should.
Yeah.
Yes, well, there are things you can do. You can play with the money. You can choose to play with the money all day, and then you'll probably make a lot of money, or you can do this and do that. I mean,
Right.
we chose
Yeah,
to play
go
with the
into
art all
finance.
day, and we get to a lot of art and meet wonderful artists.
Right.
And that's
Yes.
what it's all about, really.
Well, and making the comparison between you and Judd, I want to say Warnick, the guy does Hilo comics.
Okay.
And he
Yeah,
does
Judd Winnick, yes, who was famous for being on the first season of
The Real World.
MTV, The Real World, set in
Yeah,
San
wow.
Francisco,
Where he met his
which I never
wife.
saw. I saw little bits of it, I guess. It was sort of, that
Yeah.
was just before I never even...
Yeah.
It's funny. It's like after the fact, I'm like, I should have seen that because there was a young cartoonist living in San Francisco, and I never really saw it.
Yeah, well, that's where he met his wife, and she was on the
Yes.
show too, and so they met, and she is I want to say she's a neurosurgeon, so she's not even just a doctor, she's like a gets paid very well doctor. And so he has talked about in interviews, including on Seth Meyers, about how she jokes that he has all this play money to go be a cartoonist, sweetie. It's okay. You have money to play with. And he's like, okay, I'm gonna come up with these ideas and invest in them. And she invested in him, and
Yep.
he's had success outside of being her husband. Because he's been afforded that ability to make art. And
Right.
throughout history, we've had patronage of artists, right? And it's just that now that patronage is sometimes the spouse.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, it's making art and making money are usually somewhat mutually exclusive, except for a lucky
They
few,
can
I
often
suppose.
Yeah,
As I
Frank
said, as
Frazetta.
long as my little projects break even, I'm happy.
But Frank Frazetta was another one whose wife really helped him a lot. Like, she sort of managed his business and did all
Yeah.
this sort of stuff,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I heard Mobius say it too. Like, he also said something similar. It's like the artist has to be allowed to be like a child,
Yeah.
and so
I met
you
Alfred
need somebody to support that, because you can't be a
I
child and
met
an adult.
Alfred Bester's wife once at a comic book convention. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's like my favorite writer. I love this book. I love that book. And, I'm trying to do everything. And iBooks just had the contract for to reprint all of his stuff. And so that's one of the reasons why she was there. She was at the iBooks booth to talk about Alfred Bester, right?
Yeah.
And so, and I was like, how was it that he was able to come up with all this stuff? And she says, that's because I paid the bills.
It's a long and storied tradition.
Yes,
Well,
so
behind
I-
every great
okay.
man is a great woman. And that's what they used to
it's
say.
a good
Now we just have great women,
Guys,
and the
I
men
gotta get off.
can't
I
do
gotta
what the
get
men
off.
are supposed to do.
All right.
I
All
think that's a good
Thank
stopping
you
point.
so much
Yes.
for
All right.
having me on, and
Oh, it's so great. It's always so great to see you. I hope we'll do it again soon.
Please,
and,
please.
Yeah, sign up to Dirk's email. He sends out emails once in a while. Always very worthwhile.
Definitely when I have something to share. I send emails out when I have things to share.
Yes, you're a good example of that too. You're great. Well, this has been wonderful catching up. And,
absolutely.
All right, I'm going to say goodbye, viewers. We'll be back next week. We've got another guest next week who is Artemis Shatskin, our artist friend in the band Supersonic Symbiotic, the punk band. I'm not sure her band partner Kelly might be joining us too. And I'm trying to get them signed up for the Earth Space album that I'm putting together. I'm sort of foraying into music publishing.
I like this.
Yes. Oh, now I might have to ask you for a track too. It's getting quite full though. All right. Well, we'll talk about fair for a little minute, Dirk and I. But all right. Okay. Bye, viewers. We're going to go now.
Thank you for everyone for joining us.
Yes. Cheers.
All right. Bye.
Here's a theme song for Chuck Whelan Showy. He asked me to write one, but I stole from David Bowie. Here's a theme song. Chuck Whelan is the best. We have lots of hosts, but we're running out.